You know, one of the beers I had at Father's last night, it was like in a can. I actually put it on my Instagram stories. It was really, really good. It's like a chocolatey, but it was strong.
Oh
That's
yeah.
the, I mean, I should say that's the problem with these places is that they're really strong. It's just that, God, you come home and you're just in a friggin' bag, you know.
Yeah.
It was good though. It was pretty good. It was, um, I forgot the one I had. No, but it was a couple different ones I had. But anyway, whatever. Who cares?
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna take us live now.
Okay. I'm gonna turn my volume down on this thing.
So you
Okay,
said it was like a chocolate, so it was good, the beer you
yeah,
had?
it was good. It was strong though. It was more like it wasn't as strong as that treehouse fudge one that is like
Yeah.
it's like 9%. But I swear to God, like my friend Andrew tells me you can't have more than one.
Yeah.
And he's right because you have more than one and and it just knocks you on your freaking ass. You know, it's just unbelievable. So yeah, anyway, so I had that one. That was pretty laid back though.
Yeah, I had what did I have last night? Lickbo had
Like it wasn't as strong as that
no
tree
new
from this thing.
beers last night for some reason.
Uh,
Like they
well,
never get anything new in. It's been the same shit for like 3 months and it's getting fucking old.
well, I noticed like a lot of these bars now they have like their beer menus are a lot less. Like there's not as
Yeah.
many. So that's okay.
Well,
Shit.
but it's funny though because where I go, like I'm trying to find the live stream here so I can see who's popping on to watch
I
us.
cannot believe you'd have such a tough time with technology. Somebody will jump in. Hey, good morning, everybody jumping on. You
Okay.
guys are all ready to go. Howard, Andrea, Allie Biddles, Jacob, everybody else. It's pretty cool seeing everybody so early. Hope you guys had a good. Hey, Richie, welcome back, man. Lori, I think yeah, I think it was I forgot what I was even talking about. Never mind. So,
We were talking about beer. I'm just trying to
oh,
bring the fucking live stream up so I can see it.
oh, really? So funny
Yeah.
about the user error.
Oh my God.
Why do you guys aren't on splits? Yeah, good point. Yeah, because I can just see my fat face.
Oh, hang
You have to like
on. I don't have a fat face.
see. This is the stuff that usually takes place behind the scenes. But
There. Is that better?
I just see me and then I see you flips over back and forth. So I don't know what you did.
Okay, well, it should. There.
All right, now it's better. Okay.
All right.
I don't have to look at my goofy ass all the time. So anyway, good morning. Good morning, everybody, for jumping on. Yeah, Joe, hope you're feeling better, man. Sorry you had some
Yeah.
tough luck there. So good to see. Looks like you're on the mends. That's great to see. Yeah. So here we are. Here we are.
Yep.
So that was good. So we had a good podcast this week. We had
Yep.
a good round table. As tired as I freaking was, a little more awake now, but that was fun though. That was good. That was a good time. It was good to sit back though and kind of hear everybody have the talk amongst themselves. There was some
Mhm.
really good points brought up.
No, it's really good. Very, very good.
We don't know if Ryan Diamond's still alive though. We haven't seen him yet.
Ryan's MIA right now.
God, he was like drunken King Charles there in
He
1700 at
was
one point.
hilarious. Oh my God.
He's talking about, he's talking, and then they're going up these heights. I'm like, oh god, dude, he's like on the like
But the
going.
most hilarious story he told was how when his like he did raise a really good point that the Irish, whoever they fought for, my God, they fought passionately about it and they believed 100% in that cause. Like whether
That's
it's
the Irish thing. You go to any bar in Boston, you say one thing, whether they're right or wrong, they believe it. They'll fight. They'll fight to the death
yeah.
about it.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of the round table, who was conspicuously absent was one Andrea Lee Pike Mary,
Yeah,
who's
well
on
that's
our.
because I like thought I had emailed her and then I didn't and I feel really bad for that and I should have did what I did with Heckman and sent her just the Zoom invite in the Facebook chat that we have going with her. There's Ryan.
Oh, look who's around. Well, hey, so Ryan, I hope you're enjoying your water, and I hope you hope the headache tablets went away pretty well.
He's Irish. He's probably fucking drinking again.
I'm sure the yelling in his ear was probably worse than the alcohol, but that's okay. But yeah, he was drinking that. Ryan, you're drinking that Redbreast stuff. Oh, that whiskey. Yeah, that's good shit right there, though. That's good. You got to admit that's good stuff, though.
Yeah, I have yet to try it.
So anyway, yeah, I'll give it a couple minutes and we can announce our big book winners, which we did today. We had a big secret drawing of the books. We have our winners, and we'll talk about that, which is very cool. We were supposed to have somebody from the ABT on, but they couldn't make it, unfortunately, so we had to do it ourselves. But that's
good
fine.
morning, Jim. Jim was another
Jim.
one that was on our roundtable the other night. Hey, Wayne.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Andrea did think it was Thursday for some reason. That's
I
okay.
know.
That's okay.
Yeah,
She'll join us.
we'll
She'll
get you
join us next time. You know.
So yeah, so we raised a total of, well, actually, not we, you guys. So thank you, first of all, for everybody who donated. It was a really, really great response that we had. We raised just over $340 for Battlefields. So that is awesome.
Pretty cool. Hey, Mike, Wayne, John. Yeah, $342 we raised for the American Battlefield Trust. That's going to go and do some good things. And it was impressive to see the number of people who actually participated in this. I
Mhm.
mean, because the big thing, it's not just some book. It's only a book, but it's the it's the overall support of something like that. And we'll do this
Yep.
again. We'll do
Oh,
this
yeah.
again going forward. And we'll do some different books. And the next time we'll do a different. We'll probably do since I see Joe on here, next time we do this, we'll probably do the Franklin one.
Yeah,
I
we're
think,
gonna
right?
definitely, we're talking about doing something very similar to this around the 2021 anniversary of the Battle of Franklin, but raising money for Battle of Franklin Trust. Because all battlefields matter, and we think ABT is awesome, but we also want to help out some of these smaller ones too, just because it's all about battlefield preservation and all that. Oh, Ryan says he's got COVID.
Yeah, well, no, don't have to look like an
Ooh.
asshole for making fun of his hangover now.
Oh, feel better, Ryan.
Story of my life. Yeah, geez, God, just
Ouch.
yeah. Well, you know what? It'll all be over soon. This COVID thing, hopefully.
Yeah.
God. I had my physical the other day, Mary. That was a good time, and always is. In the COVID discussion with my doctor about that.
Yep, I know somebody who has had the vaccine already, and they're doing pretty good with it. Like,
well, Ryan, feel better. And
yeah, feel better, Ryan. Thanks for hopping on here with us.
I know a lot of people have had that unfortunate thing, and
Yeah.
some people, hopefully the symptoms are pretty light. Some people it's really, really bad. So
Yeah, I thought I had it a few weeks ago, but it turned out it was not.
Turns out your issues are just mental, so you were fine.
Well, I was going back in my head thinking, who have I seen? I haven't seen anybody at all.
Oh gosh, you went through your I have COVID. You had your I have COVID phase.
Well, I had to be sure.
Ryan, I said yes. It'll all be over soon. Mean the virus, not go into the light. Two different interpretations.
Ryan.
So you are not climbing Marie's Heights right now. to your vernacular from the other night. I can't do the accent, but you're not climbing Marie's Heights, heading towards the battle right now. You'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Anyway, back to announcing the book winners.
Yeah, so we'll announce the winners. So we have 3 books, and I was kind of stalling to see one of the winners usually jumps on, but the person's not on yet. So
hey Sarah, good morning.
We can just announce them. So yeah, so anybody, obviously take care of yourself, Ryan. Same with you, Joe. I know you're coming off of it.
Yeah, John's had a kind of a rough go of it. But hopefully you're getting better.
All right, so let's announce these winners, right? Yeah. So we'll announce 3 of them, and what we'll do is again. So we basically, like we said, we raised $342, and so what we did, so we had this idea. We obviously will go back a little bit. We did the side of the book club. We picked the books, and then we had the idea of having the lottery for the raffle.
Yep.
And then we decided to see if these authors would send us a signed copy of the book, and they all did. All 3 of them did. We didn't do the first one, the Black Iron Mercy, because we figured a lot of people had already bought the book. Yep. And we just figured it would probably just the last 3, even though we know that he would have sent one too. We know he would have. So
this morning we put the names in a hat and drew 3 names out of it.
We put the hat in a Canadian Mountie hat.
Yep.
That it was. It was covered in snow and poutine. But
it was admittedly a Patriots hat.
Okay. Hey, Jen. Jumping on. Jen. Okay, so the first book that we're going to raffle off is this one here, Through the Heart of Dixie, which we are going to be talking about. Second book? Right? Mm-hmm. Second book.
Yeah.
And the winner of this one is our friend Leonard. So yes. Leonard's going to get this book. So Leonard, you're not here yet. So if you come on, we will let you know. So he's going to get this book, and it's signed, of course, by Dr. Ann Rubin. Who's a good friend of ours, and we are happy to that. So Leonard, congratulations, first Alabama, and now this book. Boy, you are living a life. So congratulations to you.
Yeah. And our next winner is Michelle. She's not on the live right now either, but she is the winner of Assassin's Accomplice.
Yep. So that's this book right here. It's the book that we'll have Dr. Larson explain this at some point, but good one on Mary Surratt. If you're into that, she's definitely of the Mary is guilty school of thought, Mary
Whereas
Fincher.
Darren
So
and I are Team Mary.
yeah, so obviously nothing good some coming to some Mary apparently. So that's what that is. But anyway, so the third book is is this book here, Retreat from Gettysburg, which I personally think is the best book about the Battle of Gettysburg right here. My own opinion, of course.
Ooh, sacrilege. Better be careful there.
Well, I just like it because it tells a story that no one else tells. I mean,
I'm kidding. I have many unpopular Civil War opinions, like Claiborne.
And of course, this one is signed, of course, by Kent as well. And the winner of Retreat from Gettysburg is our friend Ben Frail, who donated. So that's our 3 winners. So congratulations to everyone who put in, and we did, we chose these. So Leonard, Michelle, and Ben, congratulations. But again, thanks for everybody for doing it. And we're definitely going to do this again. And it's just
it was really fun to do and see the support that we got. But we figure, as I said, going forward in the future, we're going to pick some different like other kind of things like Battlefields Trust to raise money for, and kind of just raise awareness for what they do, who they are, and just all battlefields matter, right? So like I said, we're Franklin around the anniversary of the Battle of Franklin. So
but you know what though, the ultimate winner of this is obviously all of us, because every money that this gets raised to this is to help preserve these battlefields that we all really love. So I will mail these books out on Monday. So if you won the 3 winners, I will send this out to you. And the winners will, who knows how the mail is, they'll probably get it before the 2040 probably, but they'll probably get it pretty quick. I'll mail these out from the office on Monday. So again, we will do this. Hey Tim, what's going on? Tim, we didn't wrap up your book. We'll catch up on that one down the road. So I did get that book. So Tim did send me a copy of his book, and he did sign it. Wrote something very blasphemous in the cover, by the way. Something very, very mean he wrote to me. But
I saw it. You showed it to me. It's funny.
I tweeted it.
The other exciting announcement we have, and this is actually all thanks to you guys and everybody else who listens, is yesterday we hit 10,000 downloads, and we hit that on the 5 months to the day that we dropped the first episode. So we don't get caught up in the numbers at all, but seeing that number was a huge thing for us, considering we started this 5 months ago and we didn't know how it would work out. We didn't know how it would be received. So thank you to everybody who has supported us and has come out to these Facebook Lives. This is the 23rd Facebook Live that we've done. So thank you, everybody, and especially to you, Darren. Thank you for being the awesome co-host that you are.
Wow, Alexis hair flip. No, I appreciate it. You're the best at this too. So yeah, obviously, but yeah, that's pretty good news though. 10,000 downloads is something in 5 months. That really is. And we were talking just the other day about who the hell would. I mean, we were just doing this to fuck around. The next thing you know, it's just kind of so it's pretty cool. It's a lot of fun to do it. Indefinitely. But yes, Andrea, I will be mailing all these books COD. So. Cash. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, Charles.
Yeah.
Thank
so
you,
yes,
everybody. Saying congratulations to us. Yeah, it was a huge thing when I saw that number yesterday, and it's really just unbelievable the amount of support that we've got for this. And it was one afternoon sitting down having virtual beers, and one of us said, "Why don't we start recording these? Why don't we do a podcast together?"
That'd be you.
Yeah.
You said that.
Me.
One of us. And I was like, okay.
You said yes.
No, but that's pretty cool though. That's pretty cool. That's amazing to see that. But like we don't do it for we just do it because we haven't.
Yeah, we just do it. We just wanted to record the conversations that we were having, and that's basically what we do. And like I said, the other thing that we when we sit down to record these, so it's kind of behind the scenes look at us. We just have Darren has handwritten notes. I was using handwritten notes, but I switched back to typing. And we just have these point form notes, and we just kind of go with it and see where the conversation flows to. So it's a really cool experience to be able to do this, and I love it.
It's a lot of fun, because like anything else, is like, and we watch all the podcasts. Jacob's got that really good podcast, and we listen to a lot of the other ones we listen to, and it's good because it's just. You learn something new all the time, right?
Yeah.
Even when we're studying, preparing for this, so we know to a point what we're going to talk about anyway. Yeah. But it's fun when you really get into it and you find these little stories, right? And you kind of have fun with it, and it's just the fact that it's just fun. It's just fun to sit around. I think at its core, people whether they like history or not, whether they admit it. I think they all like stories, right?
Yeah, and
And you
that's what
like
we
learning
wanted to
stuff,
do is
right?
tell, and that's what we wanted to do was tell these stories. And we also wanted to, the one thing that we never discussed, but has kind of been a very positive side effect to this is the fact that we are starting to see these historical figures in a different light and realizing that maybe they need a little bit more credit for what they did. In Civil War memory works both in the North and in the South. So it was
Mhm.
really, for me, I think the one of the more ones where I was like, oh my God, this guy's a lot better than what I think he was, is Rosecrans. I'm not team Rosecrans, but
Well, isn't it funny though, when you start to research these guys, you find out that, there's that old phrase, okay, that never meet your heroes, right?
mhm,
And so as you start to study these quotation finger hero people, you start to realize that every one of them has their own plans, their own goals, you know. And so one thing that's fun about this is that we talk about everybody. We don't try to elevate or rip anybody down. We just talk about, whatever. And it's
yep,
never about this is right, this is wrong.
yep.
Look, people can love, they can love, they can love Braxton Braggs like Jacobs does. He's a big Bragg fan. We could talk about, and we go, whether you like him or hate him, it's cool. And I think there are so many places where, especially on social media, where if you have an opinion about somebody, good or bad, you're opening yourself up to being
Yep.
ostracized. And the feeling that your opinion is wrong
Mhm.
is just laughable to me, right? So it's fun to do this, but we can just kind of have fun with it and just
Yeah.
Daniel Bragg,
There you go.
and just have fun with it. So, like we said, whether and somebody wants to make a case that Jeff Davis is the greatest. Okay, well, whatever. But I mean, it's just like I said, all opinions are welcome, and that's what's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Yeah. And the other thing too, and this experience for me, Sherman was my favorite general for a long time. And then, I started reading more about O.O. Howard, and he is my absolute favorite general. And I take more shit for that than
do you
I,
remember the time we were on that call with Gary Edelman,
yeah.
and he goes like, "Oh, Mary goes, you nothing about Sherman today? Remember that?"
I know what I had mentioned Howard.
And you had gone the other way. So it kind of goes to show how it just kind of goes to show how times have changed.
Well,
But yeah,
yeah,
so anyway,
just learning about them, right? And I especially love this episode about Columbia because whenever there's a Western theater episode, I read OO's memoirs if it was at a time that he was in the
would this
Western
be
theater.
you going on topic? You? To quote Shakespeare, et tu, Brute? You're getting us
See the
back on
llama?
topic? Wow.
See the llama?
There's the llama. There's the llama. Got a llama today. I'm impressed, Mitch. I'm impressed. But but the overall point is like, and that's what's cool about this. We look at these guys as people. And at
Yeah.
the end of the day, that's who these people are, right? And it's
Mhm.
fun. It's fun to study these people. They're good, they're bad, they're ugly. Everybody has flaws. Everybody has
Yep.
their achievements. But enjoy it. Enjoy it. It's a lot of fun.
Mhm. Actually, LC says 11th Corps is my favorite corps since so many deem them cowards, which is completely false. Yes. We were actually talking about that last night when we had beer about the 11th versus the first corps at Gettysburg.
Elsie, you are preaching to the converted here, my friend.
Yeah. First corps
You
broke first.
you want to talk about the 11th Corps? You've come to the right place.
Yep.
Especially with the the girl from Ontario over here.
I'm not only the president of the fan club, I'm also a client.
Speaking of hair, well, okay,
Hey.
it'd be cool if you could pick up that one. You know, but no, but no, but this it's a lot of fun with it though. It's pretty cool stuff. But yeah, so speaking of the Carolinas, we did talk about that. That was our latest podcast. So hopefully people listened to it. Hopefully they did get a kick out of it.
Yep.
And it was fun because as you study this, I think and this might be blasphemous for the Sherman people. I think the Carolinas is more important than the Georgia campaign.
It is.
Right?
Yep.
Because
yeah, it is.
Because they had to deal with a little bit of fighting along the way. They had to deal with the politics along the way. You had to deal with the whole Charleston, thing. What's with the South Carolina flag weeks is because we're talking about Carolina this
Mhm.
episode. Andrea, I'm trying to be. See the flag? I'm trying to be on topic. See, this is what we do here. We try to be on top. I have the flags. I'm going to use it because we're talking about Carolina. But I think it's a good study. And anybody who doesn't study the Carolinas really, really should. And
Mhm.
we've talked before, like we've talked about some of these podcasts, Mary. We've talked about the Mud March, right? We've
Yeah.
talked about Stones River, and we talked about Franklin, and it just seems that it's just. And now we're talking about the Carolinas. It's just not covered enough. It's just not. Look, I love my Gettysburg, and I love my Antietam, and I love my Vicksburg, but it's these battles in these situations that really need to get covered a lot more.
Oh, they do, because you realize in the grand scheme of thing, especially when you play the dreaded what if game, which we do a lot around here, that you realize how important they are. Ball's Bluff, that's one that never gets talked about, but the repercussions that battle had go right through the entire Civil War because of the Joint Committee on the Conduct of War that was created because of that. But you have Sherman talking about it in 1864 as he's about to take Savannah. And he's saying, I didn't want another Ball's Bluff in my hand. And that's simply that's because of what happened there. So it's in their memory. But then, as you said, Darren, like Stones River, Franklin, all these, like,
and a lot of these are happening on the same time, right?
yeah.
Howard Jones said, what was a real reason you think the Sherman didn't roll Charleston? We talked about this, and there's a couple different. He has the whole it offered no military strategy and all that stuff. But if you go to Charleston, if you go down there and you sit at the bars, if you go to the West End pub, which I've been many times, a brewery over there, they'll tell you. I don't know. I don't know why I would do that. But they'll tell you the reason why he didn't burn Charleston is because he had a girlfriend in Charleston, and she begged him not to burn the city down. She begged him. So, that's he was thinking. I don't know what he was thinking, but that's if you go down there today, they'll tell you that's why he didn't do it, and it's almost like an accepted fact. The other rumor is the fact that the mayor of Charleston was a Freemason, and he begged Sherman not to as a brother, not to burn the city down.
Yeah.
I believe the girlfriend story personally.
I do too. I've always believed the girlfriend story. But if you look at it from a military standpoint, Charleston was just like it. I mean, I shouldn't say just, but it is the place where the first shots of the Civil War were fired. But that it's just that, like, it doesn't have any military value to the point that Columbia does, being the capital. Like, Columbia is a munitions center as well, so they need to destroy that just like they did in Atlanta. So it's a military reason. But also Sherman is doing his whole, like, am I going to Augusta? Am I going to Charleston? Or am I going to Columbia?
Yeah.
He's got to make them look like they're facing towards those, but they still managed to capture Charleston, as Schimmelpfennig does. He's the one that gets the proverbial keys to that city. And, but I think, like, Columbia was the more military target, I think.
It was along the way too. I mean, if Woolwich hadn't been ruined, yeah, probably. But again, he also had Blackjack Logan on the 15th Corps in Charleston, and they didn't burn it, and he would have burned it for the sake of burning it.
Yeah.
But I think that's, who knows? I mean, there's all kinds of rumors, but I'll tell you, that's in the Carolinians down in Charleston. That's what they think. That in their mind,
it probably is true, because he had, like, women in many different cities, as we saw poor Howard in the Orangeburg incident.
Oh yeah, he gets a friendly fire. But you know what's so funny, that we've talked about this before. Like, some of the best historical conversations I've ever had have been in bars in these towns, right?
Yeah.
And if you go to Charleston, you say, why didn't Sherman burn your city? He'll say, because you had a chick here. And everybody you ask, that's what they're going to tell you. It's really something. So there's probably something to it. So who knows? And but that's just one of those things. It's just one of those urban myth, maybe, but you obviously will never know.
No.
But it's it makes sense, right? Because he's writing Halleck, saying that we're basically going to burn the city down and salt the earth, and so I mean, because so politically the people in the North want Charleston torched, right?
Yeah.
So it's out of his character a little bit not to do it. But again, we'll never know. I mean, personally, I love Charleston. I love the buildings. I'm glad he didn't burn it, because there's so many really cool places to go. And there's so many. What's neat about Charleston, South Carolina, is there is still to this day a city ordinance that the tallest building in the city has to be a church steeple. So they can't build sky rises, right? Skyscrapers. So if you go over that bridge, and you're going into Charleston from, like, Mount Pleasant, you see the city. It looks like those old-timey pictures of, like, Boston or New York or Chicago before the buildings got big. So I'm glad he didn't burn it. Personally, I like it.
I love Charleston. It's a beautiful, beautiful city. And I'm very much looking forward to going back there. I've been to Fort Moultrie, but not Sumter. Fort Moultrie was cool too.
How'd you go to Moultrie, not Sumter? That's
The
like going to
boat,
Disney
something with
World
the
and not.
boat. I don't fucking know. I was with people who weren't into the Civil War. You know what it's like.
Oh, I know that feeling too well,
Yeah.
but no, Sumter's cool though. I was there last time I was there, Mary. It was we got up early and we take the first boat. If you take the first boat
Mhm.
over to Fort Sumter and you're there at 8 o'clock in the morning, you get to be there when they raise the American flag every morning. So you
See,
get to
that's
the
what I
flag.
wanted to do.
You get to see a flag, U.S. flag raised at Fort Sumter, which is a full pants tent situation. If you're a Civil War person, I'm just telling you, just fair warning.
Well,
That's a
on my bucket list, I guess.
yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Um,
But what Andrea said, I'm just reading some comments here.
yeah,
She says about Stones River here somewhere. I forget what it was.
it was bad.
I think she was talking about why did Lincoln think Stones River was a success. I think with the Emancipation Proclamation coming out in that January, he was going to take any port in a storm, so he was going to have to claim success. They did push him off the battlefield, so it was a victory. And it was one victory in a myriad of shit shows, right?
Yeah,
with
it
everything else
was.
going on.
The Union did come close to losing Stones River, and yeah, Lincoln definitely needed that. But Stones River, again, it doesn't get talked about very much because it's in the Western Theater. But when you study it, like that's one thing I took away when we did that podcast about it, was seeing just how important it was
Right.
in the Civil War, because it opens the way to getting to Chattanooga, to Atlanta, and eventually to Savannah, and eventually to Columbia. Like if Stones River had been lost, you're looking at the Union having to go fight in Nashville again and possibly pulling troops from Vicksburg, just like what David did with sending troops to Vicksburg and pulling them.
It's all dominoes. It all
Yeah.
dominoes, right? It all plays itself in. But Jacob, yeah, I know Charleston, Surrender, and Trader and all that, but it's a great city. They've got all those rooftop bars you can go to. You can take the boat to Sumter. You can go to Battery Point, see all the cannon. You can see all the monuments. You can go see the Hunley, which is right around the corner. You can go see that. There's a lot of cool stuff. It's a beautiful,
there definitely
city.
is. Yeah. Joseph says, I really tend to think that South Carolina is more of a vital target militarily than Savannah was. It just got absorbed by popular culture and people love the controversy, lest we forget who actually started burning Atlanta. I think that is correct. Like, and Sherman even wrote in his memoirs that Savannah was it was another stopping point for his army. It was a place where they could do this march, get to, and have it as a supply point. But again, like popular culture, historical memory has made it so that the march to the sea is overshadowed in the Carolinas campaign. And like Darren said, which I'm going to say this and probably regret it, Darren was right.
Hold on. Go ahead.
You're a fucker.
Okay, very nice of you. But yeah, Robert Smalls. The boat ride to Sumter is great. You know why, Mary? This will be near and dear to your heart. They sell Palmetto IPA on the boat, which is a local
you were
beer.
telling me that I need to go on this boat once.
It's pretty cool. But going back to Stones River, it was the port in the storm. It was the one Lincoln. They talk about how they needed Antietam to issue it, and of course it's true, and that did its own thing. But they needed a win because it was going into effect, because it still felt desperate otherwise.
Yeah.
Stones River was the closest they had, and you know what? Rosecrans, got to give him credit, right?
He gets that. He and Thomas get that, and Sheridan too. Sheridan's the ultimate MVP for the Union of the battle. Jim mentions that there is a letter to Rosecrans congratulating him for the success of the Battle of Stones River and crediting him with giving him a firm victory on which to anchor the Emancipation Proclamation.
Yeah. So that was his out. Now you think about what's going on at that time. You got Fredericksburg going on. I know the news it's not like now where you find out stuff in real time. But you had Fredericksburg just go down. You've got the whole Mud March about to go down, right? You got the shit going on out west with Sherman and Grant, with Holly Ridge, Mary Holly Springs, and Chickasaw. So all this stuff is going on at the same time. So Stones River was that light in the sky that he had to go with, and it wasn't a slam dunk, spike the ball victory, but it was one that was enough that he can in good conscience get the Emancipation Proclamation off the ground on January 1st. So
absolutely, that's why. Andrea mentions, I just remember Grant questioning it when Lincoln told him about the boat dream. He rattled off some major victories, included Stones River. Yeah, and Lincoln pushes that. Or not Lincoln, Grant says it was not a victory, Grant treats Stones River a lot like he treats Lookout Mountain. And this is one, like I said, I have to preface this. I love Grant, but my God, that man shapes history
Well,
to
I think
make himself look
he
better.
well he does, and he does, and nothing. And like, look, everyone likes Grant, not like Andrea likes Grant. She's got an O.O. Howard obsession like you have with Grant, which is fine.
And I think
But I mean,
Biddles likes Grant too, and so does John P. They are
no,
definitely.
everybody likes Grant.
I
I
know.
mean,
I love
I know
Grant too. I love
I'm not
Grant
going to
too.
sit here. I'm not going to sit here and try to perpetrate some fraud that
No.
Grant doesn't deserve the credit he gets.
Oh,
All I'm
he
saying
absolutely
is
does.
that he definitely liked to be the guy. He was,
Yeah, he did.
for whatever reason. But you know what though? It, without Grant, this none of this stuff it doesn't happen.
Exactly.
You can't.
No,
So
Grant is the victor of the Civil War, but you have to remember that there was early victors too. And Ryan brought this up in the roundtable the other night. The early Civil
it
War.
must have been early in the round table.
Actually, it was near the end when he was getting all philosophical.
I love all of you guys. I love you all.
He's the Aristotle of this podcast.
I'm just kidding on you, right? I'm making you laugh a little bit.
Hard time. Jim is hashtag Team Grant. Yeah, like I said, I love Grant. But Ryan made a really good point in the roundtable that it's these earlier men that don't get studied as much, that when you study them, you see the contributions that they made to the Civil War and how that helps lead Grant to get where he does. And I think that's what we see with Rosecrans at Stones River, that without that victory, Grant might not have Chattanooga. It could have been completely different. Sherman might.
But there's no denying. I mean, and Joe makes a good point. I was just thinking the same thing. There's no denying the guy had a capital E ego.
Oh, yes.
Right? Because they knew that whoever was going to be the star at the end of the battle was going to be president. We've talked about this a million times, right?
Yep.
So they were all like playing the musical chairs. Fuck, whoever.
God, even hearing that song causes anxiety because when I was a 5-year-old and I had to play that fucking shitty game, that and Duck Duck freaking Goose, my God, the panic attack.
You guys play Duck Duck Canadian Geese, don't you? You don't play Duck Duck Goose.
Duck Duck Shithawk, which is what a Canada Goose is.
Oh, good.
That's what we call them up here. You guys get a fucking eagle. We get a thing that has the ability to fly, yet holds up
track. Well, Franklin wanted a turkey. He did.
And also, when I walk down at the beach where the shithawks live, they hiss at me.
For no goddamn reason. My football team beat the team called the Shithawks a couple of years ago, as a matter of fact, if I remember correctly. It was a good game. Malcolm Butler with the goal line. But anyway, but I think, he ultimately, Grant, was a guy who he wasn't changing history on the fly, but he definitely went back to make sure that he got credit for it. He never did Rosecrans credit for the Cracker Line, never gave credit for him, never gave Hooker credit for Lookout Mountain, never gave Rosecrans credit for the Stones River. And again, but that's not unusual though, that they all did that. The only guy who ever capitulated was Sherman. He was the only guy who wrote that letter to his wife saying Grant's the greatest thing. And so is it a surprise that Grant got along well with Sherman because he was perceived not a threat? Probably. But there's no denying Grant's greatness, but there's no denying he has a great ego.
And an agenda. He had an
agenda might be
I guess,
because that would mean that he's kind of manipulating the facts in real time. But I think he wanted to make sure.
Well, he sort of did with Lookout
Mountain. Did because all the generals write the battles. I mean, you could look at Gettysburg, right? George Meade wrote his post-battle report, didn't mention one word about John Cleveland Robinson's division on Oak Hill. Not one word, right? So again, look, it is what it is. But I think at the end of the day, he deserves the credit he got. But again, he did his best part to push away anybody who could be perceived. But don't forget, Rosecrans, he cut his own throat with Grant by going to that reporter in Cincinnati after Iuka, right?
Yep.
By basically saying, well, we sat around for 2 days and, he was drunk. And, and so if that's not a good point. If you're going to bash your boss, don't go to a media guy who everyone knows you're buddies with. Fair warning.
Exactly.
Okay? So Rosecrans was the same thing. He had the same ego. They all did.
Oh yeah. Right? They definitely did. They all had an ego on them. There are some though that I believe didn't have egos on them. Like Buford reading his biography, there was no ego there, not in the same way with Grant. I think there was a confidence there. And Howard reading his memoirs, especially what he has to say about Columbia, It is such a, like, he writes so well, so down to earth. I don't think Howard had the same type of ego that Grant had, or Sherman. Like, he was just, I'm not gonna agree with why we're doing some of this shit, but I am going to follow orders. And like you said, Howard was the
Mhm.
adult in the room that they needed.
But you
Yeah.
can't get to that level and be successful without the ego. You think of all the big, you can think of sports heroes, politicians, champions of business. You don't get to that point without the ego. So
Exactly.
what made Grant was the ego. Because if he
Yep.
didn't have the ego, he wouldn't be in that position. So you need to have a confidence. Why does everybody hate my Tom Brady? Right? Because he's cocky, he's got an ego.
Yeah.
But he wins, and I hope he loses tomorrow. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Well,
But I mean but they all do. Ego is a huge part of it.
Yeah. Joe makes a good point that Thomas, and I'm assuming he means General Thomas, would have made a good president. He absolutely would have. Thomas would have been an amazing president.
Chickamauga Rock.
Yep. Rock of Plymouth.
Rock to Plymouth.
I'm never gonna live that fucking thing on.
Nope, never. But Tullahoma is another one that we have to spend a lot of time looking into for one of these podcasts. So that's another battle no one talks about, Mary.
Yeah. Well,
right?
we are going to be doing an episode about Tullahoma.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of good ones like that, because there's a lot of places you can go about Gettysburg and Antietam, and there's some great places you can go with that. But I think it's more fun studying these battles and talk about these battles that don't get to do they really do. Franklin was a great one, because
Franklin.
Because I don't think the average, people here know, but the average person doesn't understand the Battle of Franklin from Franklin the Turtle, right? They don't. Franklin the Turtle's pretty cool on there. I'm not gonna lie to you.
In my job as working in retail for 20 some years, I had to dress up as Franklin the Turtle.
Is that why they fired you?
I had to wear one of those fucking costumes and be like Franklin the Turtle for 2 hours. It was amazing. I also was Arthur, and I was Sister Bear.
Oh gosh, admitted that in public. That's good stuff. But I think when you study these, because all these battles tend to flow into each other, right?
Yeah, they do.
And we talked a million times about how Second Manassas flows in Antietam, and how it just goes. And Antietam ultimately flowed into Gettysburg and went from there. But Franklin's one you got to study Franklin, and you got to study Tullahoma, and you got to study Stones River, and those battles that all took place in that area right there are so important to the grand overall historical scene.
Yeah, from start to finish, they are important. Like, you see with Stones River, you come away from it thinking, "Holy fuck! If Claiborne had broken through and gotten the men he needed, that would have been a shit show." Sheridan is done, despite how hard he's fighting. Again, Claiborne is the MVP of the battle in the West. Shocking.
Just read some of the comments.
Yeah.
So Tim, am I reading this right, that you don't think Elliot should have played Buford in the movie, or are you just saying that people at the time thought that was a silly choice? I'm trying to see what, because I can't think of, when I think of Buford, I think of Elliot. I think everybody does.
Oh yeah. Well, remember those text messages you and I were exchanging yesterday over the shitstorm that was headed to my town in the form of a snow squall, and we were rejigging the speech to be a snow squall.
Oh yeah.
That was great. Yeah, Tim, I do love Buford. He is my favorite Eastern Theater cavalry guy. There's a really great biography about him, which of course the author's name is escaping me right now, but it's really awesome. And I love the choice of Sam Elliott. There is no other person on this planet that could ever play Buford.
Yeah, no, but I mean, the truth of the matter is, he's right. Elliot was nothing at all like Buford, but that's probably the case. But
it's how you embody the person. It's how you embody them.
I liked, I'll be honest, I liked Martin Sheen as Lee.
Same here.
Right, I did, and it's too bad he went to go do West Wing, so he was unable to do he wasn't able to do Gods and Generals. But I liked it. I thought he played it pretty
well.
well.
I did too. And the thing with and I really realized this watching the recent Grant miniseries, or the Grant miniseries that was on. So yeah, Sam Elliott doesn't look like Buford like exactly, but it's about embodying the person that they were and taking on their personality. And in the Grant miniseries, the guy that played Sherman, my knee-jerk reaction was like, fuck, he looks nothing like Sherman. But then you see him start to act, and you realize that he is playing Sherman so well.
Why I liked Sheen as Lee was because he had that aloofness about him. Yeah. Right. I forget who played the actor in Gods and Generals. I'm blanking on it. I see his face, but I can't.
It was the consigliere from The Godfather.
Yeah, someone
played Boo Radley. in To Kill a
Yeah, I'm
Mockingbird.
just blank. I'm just blank.
Um,
But
Boo Radley.
yeah, okay. But I just thought he captured that aloofness to him, that preachy but not over preachy. Yeah, Robert
Robert
Duvall, that's who it
Duvall.
was, right?
Thank you.
But
Thank you,
that's
Jim and Chris
but that's
and Allie Kay.
yeah. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, yeah, the whole beard thing. But I liked it. Admittedly, because Gettysburg is such a superior movie, and so
Mhm.
that's if they flip the actors, who knows? I would have thought about it, but I
Yeah.
liked it. I just did. I loved him in West Wing, by the way. I'm not gonna lie.
I've never seen that show.
As President Bartlett, one of the best shows you could ever watch. It doesn't matter what political side you tend to fall on. It's just a good story. It is. What's going on, Conforti? Jacob Treehouse for you, my man. Hope
Torture.
you're having a good day.
Fucker.
That's pretty funny, but there's a lot of good stuff though, and I think yeah, Jared Harris's Graham was really
Oh
good.
God, Jared Harris is an amazing actor.
He was good in Chernobyl.
Oh yeah, you know what other show he's in is the one that we're watching right now, Mad Men.
Mad Men's a good one.
Yeah, he comes into that. But yeah, Chernobyl, holy fuck, what a Greek tragedy that was. Holy
It was.
fuck you, Taryn.
Get in line. I get
to him all the time.
I get that a lot, Chris. But yeah, but this was good. New decade. This is one of the new ones. This is really good. If you like really, really, really good beer, this is where you want to go right here. So someday, Chris, we'll do this. What university did President Bartlett attend, Darren? Allie, you are right. He went to Notre Dame. But he hints that he went to Notre Dame, so he couldn't get to that school in Boston.
Yeah.
Now, people think he's talking about Harvard, but I think he's talking about BC. So there you go.
I should do my master's in history at Boston, at BC.
Awesome. Cool. We wouldn't let you get turned down, reject you on that one. There's no way I'd fill out that recommendation for him. But that is a good show.
Karma is a bitch.
That's all right. It's all good.
Just remember who edits this.
Oh yeah, I've heard
Next
about
time
that.
you need a fucking favor.
Yeah, and Newsroom. That's another good one too. Speaking of
Ryan, son of Richard, the great Richard Harris, another great sober Irish actor.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah. But no, he was really good in Lincoln. I know I've heard people say he was too old to play Grant. It's like he played Grant so well. Like he was General Grant,
No, but Newsroom. If you ever see that one, that there was only, I think that we had 1 or 2 seasons for whatever reason. That was good. Well, I love it. God, I love West Wing. Oh my God.
Okay, so we need to add that to the list.
Yeah, well, West. Yeah, that's just a brilliant. I mean, Aaron Sorkin, who writes those, he wrote one on like a serious Saturday Night Live documentary that just kind of bombed.
Oh.
The dude from West Wing was in it. The one who played Josh Lyman. I'm pretty sure Sorkin did that. I don't know. I'm thinking about this crap, but anyway. So do you want to try to talk at the Carolinas?
I was
about
just
the flag. I got the flag and everything. I had to hang this flag. It fell down 3 times, just like the real South Carolina flag.
I have a llama.
Yeah, you got the llama. Yeah, it's white on white. Tough to see whatever. But I like the Carolina campaign because it really told a story. I think most people seem to think. When Sherman got to Savannah, he just kind of cruised up, and that was the end of it. And he catches Joseph Johnson on April 26th, and that's the end of it. But there is so much intrigue and so much studying that goes into that Carolinas. And admittedly, we stopped at North Carolina. We didn't was going to do a second episode. So, but the South Carolina one was really intriguing though, because you had a lot of the same people, obviously, who we've talked about for these last few Western battles. Guys like Jeff C. Davis, we talked a little bit about. He was in Slocum's, Slocum's 14th Corps.
Slocum was slow. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say it's interesting though how Slocum, right, or Sherman, they got stuck waiting 20 days now for the supplies that were 6 miles away.
Yeah.
You know who else got bashed for the supplies historically? Was McClellan. No one seems to go at Sherman for that. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, it's interesting how that, how there's different treatment of people. I think the greatest thing that I shouldn't say greatest thing, but something that has always stuck in my mind.
Like where this is going.
Shoot myself in the fucking foot here. Was when you said what, like, could you imagine if Sherman was thought of the way Howard was for just Chancellorsville? Like if Chickasaw was all you thought of when you thought of Sherman, whereas like
Mm.
Howard, all you think of is Chancellorsville. Where the other great thing about studying the Carolinas campaign, like you said, it is very important. It's much more important than the March to the Sea. But if you read what like somebody like Howard has to say to it, saying this is
Mhm.
very different from the March to the Sea, you could see they knew the men weren't going to be as restrained as what they were in Georgia. Um,
Yeah.
but two, the other thing about the Carolinas campaign is it needs to be one of the things that Howard is remembered for over Chancellorsville, because
Yeah. I mean,
he is the adult in the room.
Howard was not at the obviously level of Sherman. Sherman was
Absolutely
one of
not.
the,
No.
but so the big the names on the masthead are the ones who tend to get remembered
Hmm.
plus or minus.
Hmm.
Um, but it is interesting though just how we've talked about this a million times in historical memory was how someone like and Howard gets remembered for certain things
Yep.
negatively and very little positive. But as you study it, don't you notice more about how much more positive stuff done? Like the story
Oh
with
yeah.
Howard in Columbia
Yeah.
when he basically when the army was moving north, they were tearing up the railroads. They're getting ready to go to North Carolina to go take out Jacob's neck of the woods, right?
Yeah.
How Howard gives 500 cattle
Hmm.
to the residents for beef cattle so they don't starve.
Yeah.
He helps the homeless find houses. And what amazes me is he gave the Carolinians 100 muskets to
Yeah.
keep the peace in town. Can you imagine if if how that would have played out if those weapons were ultimately used against the military and they
Exactly.
but this is what he did. And you mentioned the story before about the woman there in the house in Orangeburg, right?
Yeah. God, I
Wh-
love that story.
well, so apparently, speaking of side chicks, back when Sherman was in Charleston, back when he was younger, he meets this woman, right? And basically, what happens is he ends up kind of bumping into her again at this house. Now, the house they were at was a judge's house who was one of the signers of the secession papers
Mhm.
in South Carolina,
Yeah.
which tells you that capital B burned this house is getting as soon as he leaves. But she tells him, I remember you from Charleston. You were a gentleman then, and I expect you to be a gentleman now. And for whatever reason, Sherman says, oh, okay, well, he must have something must happen. But it was funny that Howard is the one who laid her out right before that.
I know, and she's saying, he's like, who wronged you? Because we'll punish them. And she's like, it was Howard, and you can see Howard just like, oh my God, and just starts sinking down in his chair, like, oh fuck. But
Well,
the way
you could see he's in a place called Judge Glover's house. That's the name of the guy
yeah,
was, right? So he's sitting there, and so this woman, okay, she goes to him. It was the judge's wife, Glover's wife, Mrs. Judge Glover, okay, and she goes to OO and says, can you post a guard in front of my house so your animals in the 15th Corps, in the 17th Corps don't burn my house down?
yeah.
And he says, and probably some, no, I won't. He probably swore at her, probably called her, dag nabbit, I won't do such a thing. That was hard language for old Howard. So she flips out, ends up running into Sherman at the same house and says, that asshole, okay, points at Howard, that fucking asshole would not put a guard for my house. He's probably sitting there, looking down,
Or
those
he's probably
Bible.
sinking in his chair, like, oh,
He's,
fuck.
I mean, he's probably crossing himself 48 times.
Yeah, he's like, Jesus Christ.
But it's funny, and then they finally capitulate and put a guard in front of the house. But I thought it was interesting that he didn't burn the house down, right? Of all the stuff he did, right? All the stuff he did, it just goes to show, and that's why I believe the Chick and Charleston story.
Oh yeah, no, I do too, because of that story. The funny thing is Howard's recounting of this event is he owns it 100%. Like he said that she came over to him and she was going on about how she needed a guard at her house, and he was probably getting things left, right, and center at him, and he was kind of just like this whole like, okay, could you fucking not right now? I have so much shit to deal with. And then like he admits to being impatient, but then he also admits that he couldn't figure out why she was so vexed. It sounded like such a guy thing to say, like, I can't figure out why this woman is angry with me.
Can you imagine Howard sitting there, just looking at her, he probably like, I give my right arm to be out of this house right now. That's probably
It is my favorite Civil War story, I think, because it's Howard, and he's so like, you can just see him sitting at the table when she's like, it was General Howard. He's probably like, oh my God.
Oh, you can only imagine what's going on. The soldiers, they're probably all looking at Howard. They're probably all laughing because they all
Yeah,
hate
like,
him, right? Because Franz Siegel's gone now, so they all hate Howard. So they're
yeah,
probably,
that's what Ryan
this,
says. Is Howard's problem is his men
this
didn't
woman's
like him.
probably got his finger in his face going, "You son of
You
a,"
fucker.
and they're probably like laughing. Oh, look at Howard getting ripped up. He's getting torn up. They probably enjoyed the hell out of it. And you know who probably enjoyed that too is Sherman. He probably sat there and said, "What general was giving you shit?"
And she's like, Howard. He's probably like,
she goes, "It was the one-armed man," you know. and he's probably sitting there like, "Oh, dagnabbit, oh golly."
probably like.
but it is funny though when you imagine how it must have gone down.
It is, but like I said, like I encourage everybody to Google Oliver Otis Howard memoirs and read that section because his telling of it it's like comedy. You can just see it unfolding. You can see him sitting at the table and her saying, it was Howard. And Sherman's probably like, he turns to Howard and he's like, Howard, how is this? And he's probably like doing the whole like, what happened? And Howard's probably like, this is what Howard does right here.
He probably just like, fuck. It's like, I'd be back in Maine catching fish and dodging black bears. And here I am getting Judge Glover's wife rip me up for not putting a guard in front of her damn house.
He admits to being impatient and he admits to like, he's like, I had too many irons in the fire. I'm going to own this one.
Yeah, that must have been an uncomfortable situation for Oliver Otis there. But it'll be interesting when we get into North Carolina, when we get back into this, because we're going to take a step out away from the from Sherman. We're going to go back to some different things. We're going to go to booth next week and just all that stuff. But we're going to focus more on this down the road. We'll talk about Fort Fisher, Jacob. We'll talk about the exploding barge that sent Sharknadoes falling down through all of Wilmington. We'll talk all about stuff. And so, but it is funny. But Howard does get a bad rep, though. He does.
And this is like, I think we both said in the podcast, I can't remember which one of it was that, what he did at Chancellorsville, this needs to be above it. This needs to be one of the reasons he's remembered positively because, and also the way he writes about what happened in Columbia, like you can see he's very like emotional about the city being on fire because he thought it was a beautiful city. But, Columbia is something that has the reputation of being like the Union troops came in and fucking burnt it to the ground and everybody was like drunk and whatever. What are you looking at me like?
Just listening to you. Just listening to you.
Okay.
So you ramble.
Yeah, because you never do that. Anyway, so Howard writes it so that, Howard says, this was us. This needs to be on us. But he also mentions Wade Hampton did start the fire. But Howard says, we did it too. There was
so it was burning. Since the world's been turning.
Yep. I just thought of that. But he mentions them, saying we need to own this as well. But the other thing he talks about is the soldiers that were doing good things. The ones that when the citizens' houses caught on fire and they had to leave and they're all sitting out in the street. Howard said that there was a lot of members of his army that were helping the people, that were guarding them from what was going on. And that is something that never gets talked about. And Howard is literally the adult in the room. He can't control everybody, but he sends that order to Logan and who was it? The other guy, Osterhaus, right? Saying like, you need to control your men. Like you need to control them. The other funny thing about Howard is that when he writes about people drinking, he laughs about it. He's like, some of these boys are having whiskey for the first time. He's not judgy. Like he's not a judgy guy. Later on in life, Howard would, there's one story where I think Howard was living in DC at the time. He found a man who was drunk on the streets. It was like a really young guy. And he took the guy home and he and his wife nursed him back to health and they helped him get sober and he never drank again. Like Howard was that type of person that Howard was a huge believer in second chances. Like, and he writes about that in his memoirs.
And he never sang Call Me Maybe again.
Yeah, he found the guy singing Call Me Maybe.
Hey, Wayne, I'm with you on the point about West Point with the preachy thing. I'm with you on that one. But as a political science history guy like me, I loved it because the White House stuff. I just did. So it was. What's going on, Jen Rowland?
Hey, Jen. Hey, John. Good to see you, Jen.
And, but yeah, been a little while. So good to see you.
No, she said that she's back onto a different shift at work, so she can catch up now with being on these with us. So that's pretty awesome. Ryan says, you go with Hooker and Logan as wing commanders. Georgia and the Carolinas are still burning today, unless Hooker avoids the cities where he has girlfriends, in which case only one barn somewhere in Georgia gets burned.
Yeah, I think that
Good
it's
point.
true, but I think putting Howard, first of all, Slocum is like putting a great great grandfather in charge. He's not going to,
Yep.
but putting Howard in, we mentioned before, like I think we mentioned like the adult in the room, right?
Mhm.
I think it gave Sherman plausible deniability though.
Yep.
Like he put Howard in charge the 15th and the 17th, okay, which is kind of like the Delta House and Faber
That's like
College,
that.
right?
That's the
So
sober dude being in charge of the frat
right.
kit right
So
there.
so now when he issues order number 26 not to burn down Charleston, and he does it the old wink, right?
Yeah.
He could sit there and say, I got a Christian general who's saying not to do it. But it's like you got Blackjack, and I mean, Osterhaus is a little milk toast, but Blackjack Logan. I mean, Jesus God,
Oh God.
I mean, he's and Frank Blair is there too, and all that. But I think the reality is he knew. You could look at the letters that Sherman wrote to Halleck about punishing South Carolina, and you could see how it played out. And when Sherman was meeting with Goodwin, the mayor of Columbia, right?
Yeah.
The night of when this whole thing went down, okay, he basically the Goodwin was like, I'm told by Sherman that this order 26, they're not going to burn, they're just going to burn the factories, nothing else.
Yeah.
But he goes, I'm overhearing these other generals talking about there's going to be a rocket that's going to go off at 7:00 at night, signaling the men to burn the rest of the fucking city down. And that's what happened, right? Now, Sherman will say later in his memoirs that it was a total accident.
He's all like, and Howard is basically saying this was not an accident.
He's he's Shaggy saying, wasn't me, wasn't me.
This is Robert L. O'Connell put it perfectly. Accidentally on purpose. That's basically what Howard does imply in his memoirs. Hey Sherry, it's good to see you on.
Yeah, likewise.
Hey.
But I think what it does, he can sit there and say, I put the order out. I put this preachy Christian guy in charge. It still happened. I did my best. But I think, and anybody reasonably thinks, he wanted the stuff punished because the letters he wrote to Halleck. But it gave him a legitimate point to deny it, right? And I've been at Columbia, okay, and you can still see the damage. But there are certain parts of the city that they didn't damage. There's that bronze palmetto statue that they didn't, that's still there. That the soldiers wanted to burn, but Howard basically said, no, we need to guard this because it's beautiful. We can't destroy this, so we didn't, and it's still there today. I mean, I don't think it's beautiful.
And I don't think Howard, Howard was obviously, we're looking at a guy that was, I personally think he was an abolitionist. He's very ahead of his time in the way he thinks about, especially the former slaves and all that. You can tell that in his writings. He definitely does not. I would not say he's a racist in this to the same level that Sherman is. But I think the thing with Howard is he took those Christian values he had, and he was thinking ahead and thinking, we cannot totally destroy this city because, my God, we've got to be able to repair and rebuild with these people after. So he's taking those values that he has and saying, like, we can't just come in here and do this, even if they've done it to us.
American military history is you destroy a city, then you rebuild it again, right? So anything they were going to destroy, they were going to have to rebuild again, right? And how much money is that going to cost? Like, but it was a lot of propaganda too. Like, you see the pictures of these burnt out hovel cities like Atlanta, and it wasn't even Atlanta. I mean, there was a lot of Southern propaganda too about that. I think Sherman did go light-handed in South Carolina.
He did.
But I think he made the point to burn certain things. And oh my God, it got out of control. What can you do? Yeah. But he could have spiked the ball. I mean, I personally, like I said, I'm glad he didn't burn Charleston because it is one of the most beautiful cities you'll ever see.
Yeah, same here.
And there are so many churches and buildings. That certainly could have been completely destroyed. I'm glad it's still there. That just treasures to be at.
Well, the other thing that Sherman does too is in his after battle report, he completely blames Wade Hampton, which Hampton's men did light the cotton on fire, but like Sherman's like, we didn't do any of this. It's Hampton, but Sherman says in his memoirs, I blamed Hampton. for that, just out of spite. Like he admits to doing that in his after battle report. You know, I had to blame someone, so I blamed Hampton. I'm not going to blame our guys.
Well, there was that controversy with Beauregard and Hampton, though, right? Where Beauregard says, burn all the cotton. The town is loaded with cotton.
Yep.
Burn it all. And Hampton's like, I don't want to burn the, are you kidding me? I don't want to burn the freaking cotton. And so he ultimately burns it, but Beauregard overturns that order and says, okay, fine, don't burn it. But by then, you know, the fire's been burned.
Yeah,
it's that Billy Joel song again, Mary. We didn't start the fire.
That's like, Jacob says, "Oh, Sherman didn't start the fire. No, he didn't light it, but he didn't try to fight." That's true.
I know a guy who'd sing that song karaoke at Surratt's boarding house in Washington D.C.
I know somebody that's going to sing "Call Me Maybe." I know somebody who's going to sing "Call Me Maybe" there.
You know, Jesus. Stupid shit right there. Yeah, exactly. But you know what though? But you look at I mean, parts of the city did get destroyed. I mean, there was that whole story about the Wilmington Street station we talked about, right?
Yeah.
Where Schimmelfennig, the pig man, comes in. Schimmelfucker, yeah. He comes in, the 10th Corps takes over Charleston because people don't realize that it wasn't Sherman who took Charleston, it was the 10th Corps, it was Schimmelfennig. Yeah, exactly. So he found his way out of the pig barn there. You know?
Apparently he did.
You know? But he ends up taking over the city. But there's that story where those local kids are playing with matches and they start throwing matches at a building and it catches on fire, which happens to house 200 kegs of black powder, which blows up and kills 100 people and civilians in line for rice.
God,
I mean, it's just shitty stories. But
I know it's so. Christopher says, "Don't be slamming my Carly Rae Jepsen." Hey, she's Canadian. I like her.
Don't be slamming Carly Rae Jepsen. Oh God, if you only do that,
we might have given you fucking Bieber, but we also gave you Jepsen. I think that makes up for it.
Neil Peart, give us Neil Peart.
We gave you Gordon Lightfoot too.
He's dead. I think Neil Peart died though.
Yeah. We also gave you Edward Doherty.
He did.
And John Huff.
John Huff, that's true.
Who is John Huff, Darren?
I don't know. I know John Huff is, but I'll let you tell the story.
John Huff is the man that fired the shot that killed Jeb Stuart, and he's a Canadian.
Stewart, yeah. Yellow Tavern, 1864.
Yeah, he was a sharpshooter.
Edward I'm going to take one of those Lincoln Avengers pins like Taylor has.
Yeah.
For the 16th New York, the cavalry that got Booth. I
want one. I want one of those too because I am extremely proud of my country for that one. We own that.
You did something right. It makes up that burning of the whole White House thing in 1814. You did.
You fuckers deserved it. You fucking came and burnt York, which is now Toronto.
Your country didn't exist then, but 1867.
Excuse me. Yeah, we did. I know we didn't.
All you guys were a big Snowbank and Anne Murray albums. Is all you guys had at that point.
You fucker. Remember that? I'll fucking burn your house down.
Go Canada. But Neil Young is another one. Yeah, exactly.
Jacob says we don't deserve Gordon Lightfoot. He is amazing. I saw him in concert about 15 years ago. I love that man. He's an awesome singer.
Never saw him in concert. Never did.
I did. Edmund Fitzgerald's one of my favorite songs.
Best concert you ever went to was who? Which one?
Pardon?
Best concert.
Paul McCartney. Yeah. Paul McCartney and the Beastie Boys tied for first.
My best concert was Motley Crue and Kiss. That's my mentality, though. That's
God, I'd love to see Motley Crue and Kiss.
Motley Crue's. I'll tell you now. I know we're going off topic real quick, but the best live bands I ever saw is Motley Crue, Metallica, Judas Priest, and Iron Maiden. And Queensryche. Those five Queensryche.
God, I want to see Metallica so bad. John P.
Motley
Tragically Hip. Yeah, Canada.
What?
Canada, Tragically Hip. You heard of Tragically Hip? Gord Downey, Tragically Hip.
I've heard Tragically Hip.
Yep. Another good Canadian band to check out, lesser known, is called The Trews. I saw them in concert. That was a really good concert too. I saw them here in Goderich. They're legit awesome.
You know what my very first concert was? Cyndi Lauper.
My very first concert was the Beach Boys.
Oh God. I met Cyndi Lauper about 15 years ago. And so I was at a work event and she was at. So of course, and she's little. She's like you are. She's tiny. Yeah. So of course I go talk to Cyndi Lauper, and so I go, my very first concert was you, and she's like, oh, that's so sweet. I go, do you remember me? I was waving from the balcony. Oh yeah. She's very, very nice. She's a little weird, but it was very, very nice.
Bringing it back to the Civil War, I think we should do an episode about Civil War music sometime.
Yeah, we can do that.
And what some of our favorite songs are. and just music in the Civil War in general. Christopher says best concert for me was Weird Al. Yeah, he's pretty cool. Hey, Ronnie. So anyway, bringing it back to the Carol.
I want to talk about when I saw Queensryche and Judas Priest together at the Mohegan Sun in Connecticut, Mary. That was a good one. There was zero beer drink that day.
Yeah,
Other
I'm sure.
things too, actually.
Yeah, McCartney's definitely my favorite. McCartney and Beastie Boys.
Yeah, you saw McCartney and the Beastie Boys together?
No, separate, but they're tied for first.
You know,
That would be an amazing concert, though.
well, it would be the license to ill the Beatles tour. So that would be. Yeah.
Hey, I got to sing "Hey Jude" with Paul McCartney and thousands of other people. It was amazing.
Oh, very cool, very cool.
Yeah.
I never saw him, but anyway, so I guess we'll go back to this stuff.
But no, but David Kincaid does great U.S. Civil War music, especially the Irish stuff. Is that the guy that you listen to? Who's the dude that you listen to? David Kincaid. Why do I know?
No. Andrew mentions Harry Connick Jr. So Andrew, here's a story for you. I was at a baseball game down here in Cape Cod a couple summers ago. There's a league here called the Cape Cod Baseball League, which I'm a part of, and I was sitting on right field, and who am I sitting right next to was Harry Connick Jr. And so we got to talk to him about a half an hour, just let's shoot about life in general. He's actually a cool dude, Harry Connick Jr. So I got to hang with him. So that was pretty fun. So I'll ask you the question I always ask you every one of these lives, Mary, which is what did you learn about this campaign, the actual one we just talked about?
I learned, first of all, the importance of it and how much more important it was than the March to the Sea. And I also learned more about just how prominently OO figures into this. I'm not just saying that as the president of his fan club, but just seeing how he figured into it, how he never gets talked about regarding it, how the union is seen in such a negative light, and in many ways they need to be seen in a positive light in this, and just how OO writes about it from a standpoint of somebody who clearly struggled with what was happening, didn't like what was happening, but realized that he couldn't control everything. And I think it is the reason why he needs to be seen in a more positive light. But those were my two takeaways: the importance of this campaign, as well as that Howard needs to be talked about more for his role in the campampaign.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the one I don't think it's talked about enough is kind of what you just said. I'm going to kind of echo your point, was Howard post Columbia, right? Of what he did as far as because he didn't have to do that, right?
Nope. He didn't have to give them those cows.
And I got a feeling that he didn't get permission from Sherman to do it. I think he just did it, right?
It shows what a good person he was.
And so he's someone who didn't want to leave. And I think, and one thing that tells me, to be honest, Mary, going back to the Georgia campaign, it goes to show the emotional, probably battle that Howard was fighting with that entire campaign. Because I remember a situation where he left food for the people all the way through, and they did a lot of shit, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's in charge of that 15. He's in charge of blackjack. So I think it was probably a struggle for him.
It was
philosophically, whatever you want to call it. And I think almost like his Columbia giving the food and finding the housing for the homeless was kind of his give back for everything he saw, right?
Yeah, I think it was. I think he felt he definitely had to do that as a Christian, and just the human that he was. That he does say that he did not agree with the bummers, what they did on the March to the Sea, but he recognized that it had to be done. But I think you're absolutely right that he was having struggles internally with having to be the soldier, but also the person he was, that he's seeing shit that he doesn't like, that he is a man who for his, especially, and Ryan mentions his post-war career is what makes him, why he should be known. Absolutely. This is a man that would take people off the streets who were drunk, and he and his wife would nurse them back to health. He would help them get a job. He would, this is a man who clearly saw the human side that I think Sherman and Grant sometimes had the blinders on with this, whatever, we can't worry about the citizens. Howard was the one clearly in this situation worrying about those citizens and making sure they were cared for, and also wanting to see that I don't think Howard wanted them to think what you saw in Columbia with the burning, that's not who we are. That's not what we're about. We don't want to be remembered for that. So yeah, I think that Columbia was his kind of way of absolving himself of how he was struggling with what he witnessed on the
Well, do you
farm.
know how Sherman wrote those letters afterwards saying that it was all an accident, we didn't mean to do that,
Yeah.
and you know it's bullshit.
Yep,
The
because Howard
the
doesn't. Howard
right,
says it's not a
the
fucking
letters
accident.
Howard writes afterwards, because he writes those letters February 18th, I think it was 1865. He writes those letters to his commanders, and he's pissed off.
Yep, he is.
It's brought to my attention that some of you are allowing this stuff, robbery, stealing with stuff, and so you could tell he's mad. He threatens to execute anybody who he sees doing this.
Mhm.
And I don't think that's all just lip service. I think he really believed
I
it.
think he was done.
I think at that point he was like, listen, I didn't sign up for this. We had an agreement. We were only going to do certain things. And
Yep,
I think he was a man of his word.
yep,
But I think he didn't realize that he was probably put in that place because he was going to he was going to be the one, he was going to be the speed bump on it. But
yep,
he could not control Osterhaus. He could not control Joe Logan. Arguably, he could control Blair, but Blair, the 17th wasn't as bad as the 15th. But it just seems to me that when I read a lot of Sherman's memoirs preparing for this, and I think
mhm,
reading his, all I could think of is that movie. Oh please, as if, that's
yep,
all I could think of reading that stuff.
yep,
But then I read Howard's quotes, and I'm like, you know what, this guy's not lying.
yep,
He didn't sign up for this. He's like that movie. I'm getting too old for this shit.
yep. Yeah,
Lethal
that's
Weapon.
where he was. That
You
Columbia
know,
was like, I am too old for this shit. And I think Howard was he my age in Columbia?
he wasn't that old.
That is the second time you've made fun of my age this week.
Don't say yourself up that way. I'm gonna hit you every time on that.
I
But
know.
yeah, he was probably no. I think he was probably. I
I
think he
know,
was a little bit younger.
Todd.
You know, but I think he. I think he.
Personification.
I know. I think he was a little bit younger, but they're talking about do you shit. But I think they're talking about the soundtracks, and someone mentions Gettysburg. I love the Gettysburg
Oh
soundtrack, Mary.
God, that
And
is
so
like my favorite.
every time I drive into Gettysburg, I always get off on Route 15. I get off the Gettysburg College exit, right? This
Mhm.
is the first one. And as soon as you're going down that road, you get to a point on the right hand side. There's like a neighborhood.
Mhm.
It's the Eddie Plank development. It's just a
Yep.
house near it. And if you start the intro to the first song in Gettysburg, at that very second, you hit play, the very first song, the intro, and you driving into town, it ends the second you're going by the Lincoln railroad
Yeah.
station.
You
And
you
every time I
videoed with
go,
me when you were going into
right,
town one
right.
time.
And every time I do that, I start it and I videotape it at the very end, and it ends right as you're the dump, 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 dump at the
Yeah.
end, right as you're going by the railroad station. It is do it if you're driving. It is the coolest thing. But that and the Glory soundtrack are the two best
Oh yeah, those are my two
soundtracks.
favorites. Funny story about the Gettysburg soundtrack. So sometimes I will put it on shuffle. And so
Mhm.
I was leaving town one night to go. I was headed to Michigan the weekend to hang out with some friends of mine, and I was leaving in a snowstorm. And I hit
Mhm.
shuffle, and I look down, and the first song that comes on is the one about Pickett's Charge, and I'm like, "Fuck,
It's
God!"
funny.
Like now or never. Let's do this.
No, but those two soundtracks, the Gettysburg and the Glory, are the best. They're just the
They
best.
are.
And you get those songs stuck in your head, especially if it's like
Oh yeah,
Gettysburg.
I play that. Oh yeah, I love
It
that.
just does. But it is really fun though. But I'm telling you, if you're driving in there and you start it, okay, right
Yeah.
at that development, it will end. I mean, sometimes you get stuck at that right at Gettysburg College. You're gonna take the left on a Carlisle Road, but if you can get through there reasonably, and there's not a lot of traffic, you can that's exactly when it ends. It is the coolest thing. I don't know. I just stumbled upon that one day. Now I know when to start
Yeah.
exactly when. It's fucking
That's
awesome.
awesome. Oh, the
You
other
know?
good soundtrack too is Lincoln.
That one's okay. I don't think
I
as good
love
as the other ones though.
Yeah, no, Gettysburg and Glory are my two favorite soundtracks. I'm such a soundtrack whore. Like I've been into soundtracks since I was like 10 years old. Just
Really.
oh yeah, I love instrumental music. It's But yeah, Gettysburg
There's
and
something soothing about it. It's so funny.
yeah.
I'm the only one here in Cape Cod sitting at the red light blasting the Gettysburg, the
Me too,
finale
in
song
Godrich.
with the window. I'm sitting there with my Gettysburg license plate, my
Yeah.
tag, with my hand on the steering with the windows down blast and the final edit. But the people look at me like they don't know what the hell the song is, but
There was one day I was going grocery shopping, and I had my Civil War music on. I had the windows down because it was a nice day, and Marching Through Georgia by Black or Old Crow Medicine Show came on.
Mhm.
And I was just sitting there singing and like rocking out to it. And this couple of
when it hits that speed, when it gets going, right in the middle there, it gets going.
Oh yeah. And I'm like, just, well, we were marching through Georgia. And like this, yeah, sorry guys. So then like this couple, I suddenly stop, and this couple in the car next to me is like, and I'm like, oh, there's people.
I was humming that song when I was in Kennesaw Mountain at Marching Through Georgia with my Sherman t-shirt, my Union Kepi hat, being a dick strolling through Pigeon Hill and Little and Big Kennesaw.
They played that song at Sherman's birthday last February, and Jen and I went nuts over it.
It's so funny, but Atlanta tends to appreciate their history a little bit to a point. They can get their balls busted a little bit, but Georgia's a lot different than it was. Obviously, 50 freaking years ago, definitely. But it's definitely a lot of fun. But yeah, I definitely caught a little bit of shit. Of course, I was a dick though. I was going around humming that song, and it just and a lot of people walked by. There's only one person who actually said one thing. Takes a lot of balls wearing that hat and that t-shirt in these parts. Some lady. I don't know.
I've been told that too when I'm wearing my Sherman shirt in when I met up with some friends of mine at Chickamauga. One of them was like, well, you got a lot of balls wearing that Sherman shirt. I'm like, yep.
I mean, when I was wearing, I wore that in Atlanta, and a couple of people made reference of it, very few. But when I wore that Patriot Falcons one, that got them going. I mean, obviously people don't, that's Sherman thing, people don't pay attention to a hell of a lot of that, but it's still pretty cool.
There's some comments here. Allie B loves the Lincoln one. Yeah, I listen to soundtracks too when I read to Allie. It helps me concentrate. I've always done that. What else is here? Bob says, my dad was a big Civil War buff and collector and loved Gettysburg. We played part of the Gettysburg soundtrack at his funeral. Oh, wow.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Jim, yeah, you do need to get Lincoln soundtrack. It's probably in my opinion, it's John Williams' best, but I'm biased. Andrea said they were playing Glory soundtrack at the Virginia Civil War Museum, which is both hilarious and offensive because the museum's nothing but lost cause.
Mm-hmm. The soundtrack, because they do it right, because the soundtrack makes them. I know some people who don't like the Gettysburg soundtrack. I think it's just too much. I think it's perfect.
I love it.
One of those very serious Facebook pages that me and Andrea got banned off of.
I can't imagine. Andrea, by the way.
They would talk about how that the music was disgraceful because it took away from the movie. I was like, it's not like it's actual fucking footage, people. Okay,
are these the same people that don't like the What If game that we played?
I'm like shocked that the people who fought this battle were not 55-year-old fat guys like in the movie. They weren't. They didn't wear reenactor cut pants. Okay, these are real people back then. But I remember that. So that's back in the Facebook page that shall not be named.
Yeah. God. The What If game, though. I mean, is there anything with the What If game that we could do with Columbia?
It's tough to say. I mean,
it is. It's a harder one to do the What If game.
It wasn't like Hampton could really put much of a defense up. I mean, you could sit there and basically say, what if the Confederates got more support up? What if they had a little bit more? What if James O'Connor's South Carolinians had made it to help defend the city?
Yeah.
But they would have just sieged the city.
I think there's.
And I've said this before. I'll say it again. Anything after Atlanta is overkill because the war was over after
Atlanta. Exactly. Yeah.
And so anything that happened after that, anybody who died after that, unfortunately, in my own opinion, opinion not facts, is just a waste of life because the war was over. This was the stubbornness of Davis and all those people in his department, his government, that they didn't realize the war was over yet, and they didn't want to admit. when Atlanta fell, they should have said, this is done. Actually, you can say when Vicksburg fell, it was over.
That was what started breaking.
But especially when Atlanta fell, because anything after that, it was pointless. So, because you couldn't get these, you had these boys fighting, you had these older guys fighting, there was no one left to fight anymore.
The Confederacy is bleeding men, like desertions are at an all-time high. Actually, there's a really good book about, and you would love it, Darren, The War for the Common Soldier by Peter Carmichael. And he talks a lot about the soldiers' letters in that, and he has a chapter about desertion, and they were bleeding men at that time. And I think the other thing to look at too with Davis is obviously I think Davis inwardly is he's like, we're fucked, we're done, this is not going to happen. But outwardly, if you look at Davis's speeches that he's making after he escapes from Richmond, after Lincoln's been assassinated and all that, he's saying, don't worry, we got this, as there's a gigantic fucking fire going behind him. The Confederacy has become this huge dumpster fire, which it always was, but Davis is trying to tell, oh, don't worry, it'll be okay. And he's trying to escape to fucking Mexico. No. It's clear it's the politicians that know, or that want to keep it going. The generals, especially the ones in the West, if you look at Hardee as well as Beauregard, that they are all levels of done with it, especially Hardee. I think Hardee after Franklin, you talk about things like PTSD and things affecting you personally and emotionally. I think Franklin was it for him. I think he was really, especially Claiborne's death, that was his best friend when he found out.
Franklin was the grand finale. I mean, that was,
we're done.
Franklin was the last great big battle of the Civil War. I mean, that was the grand finale. Allie, the election. No, you're right. But I think Atlanta falling was set the election. That was it. Once Atlanta fell, the election was over. So you can kind of follow. It's like the butterfly effect thing,
Exactly.
But I think, but I think that's how it is. And Jim talked about this, Ken Burns' Civil War doc. That's a great one too. Has the best version of Marching Through Georgia. That's a slow version.
Beautiful
I love that version. Has an Angel song, which is really, really good.
Yeah.
But that's pretty good. The Ken Burns one was pretty good. I mean, there's a couple things on it, but
I love it. But yeah, I think the generals realized, like I said, especially in the West, that the war was done. You look at how Beauregard are, and like I said, like Hardee, who is just after Franklin, done. We've lost so many good men in that battle, men that probably could have helped us recover, and he's just whatever. Whereas you've got Lee, and they're trying to keep it going up there. But I think it was the politicians, that are trying to
definitely, I mean, the generals want to keep fighting. I mean, you're talking about even during, Sailor's Creek, right? The very end, right? When A.P. Hill got popped there was even Longstreet's telling him, not yet, don't surrender yet. We'll go, him and E.P. Alexander, the one who likes to throw his balls around, Mary, right? E.P. Alexander, he exactly. I mean, he's saying, let's go into the mountains and fight a guerrilla war. And it was Lee, to his defense, who said, no, we're done.
Yeah, we're done. We have to be done with this.
It's like when the British, sorry, Ryan, finally after Yorktown said, we're done. The French boats are coming. We're done. They knew when it was time to quit. The problem with these Confederates wasn't so much the Lees or the Johnsons of the world. It was the politicians, obviously. It was Jefferson Davis.
If you look
it was Stevens. It was all of them. They did, because they knew, because they also knew what usually happens to people who try to overturn governments, what happens personally to them, right?
Yeah.
So they wanted to keep going on it. AP died. I thought, no, maybe you might be right. I think he did at Five Forks, Jacob. It was right around. It was one of those battles. I thought it was the Sailor's Creek or Five Forks when AP finally killed. It might have been one of the two. It might have been Five Forks, but I thought it was Sailor's Creek though. I thought it was anyway.
Someone Google that for us, please.
Yeah, we'll find out.
Mike said, "I've wondered if the South kept fighting so late in the war with an eye on what it would be like in the post-war. The longer and harder the South fought, the less interest the North would have in refighting anything down there post-war." That could be. I think it was also too, like you said, we both said, the politicians are the ones keeping this going, but there are a few generals. I think Beauregard and Hardee and obviously Lee, who are like, this is done. We can't do this anymore. Wayne said, it's not just Franklin, it's the slow march to Nashville and sleeping on the frozen ground, then running for your life all the way back across the river. Yeah, like that, Hood. For Lee, or not Lee, but for Davis to put Johnston back in play at command is something. He lets Johnston go, puts Hood in place, and then puts Johnston back in command. Mm-hmm. You got to wonder, so here's a what if. So let's say Franklin goes a little bit different and Claiborne doesn't get shot through the heart. Bon Jovi reference, probably hashtag too soon. Let's say
You
Claiborne.
give Canada a bad name.
Let's say Claiborne doesn't die at the Battle of Franklin. Does Claiborne get put in charge over Hood after that? Or is the emancipation that he wrote too much? Has he really shot himself in the foot?
I don't know. That's a tough one to say because he was blackballed after that emancipation letter.
Oh, that's completely why he was blackballed.
You know, that's a tough
being
one.
Irish or not going to West Point.
You know, I think that's a tough one. That's to guess on that one. You know,
it's an interesting what if though. Like that was his next chance, right? Because he'd been passed over so many times before, especially when Hood was placed in charge at Atlanta. It probably should have been Claiborne once Hardee was like, fuck that noise, I'm not doing that. But yeah, like that's another what if right there. And like you said, though, it is a tough one.
I mean, it's tough to guess that one. It's tough to guess that one, but who knows? I mean, who knows? But it's one of those things. I think he was screwed. I mean, the politics plays into this so much.
Oh yeah.
You know,
well, just the responses he got to that, you know, emancipation are like, dude, no, this is not, we can't do that because then you're taking away our economy. What are we going to do? You know,
well, the whole thing was why we fighting, right?
Yeah.
One of those guys who said that, you know, it's tough to say. What's going on, Al? Well, thanks for joining us,
Al. Wayne says if Claiborne survived Franklin, he would have taken the left wing of Hood's army at Nashville and he dies at Shies Hill. So Claiborne is not coming out of this war alive.
No, probably not. I mean, he was a fighter. He was going to go in. I mean,
and Wayne said we'd call it Claiborne's Hill instead.
If you take care of that, you could write those letters. That'll be you. You could certainly make that happen.
Fuck.
You can start your letter with, "Imagine my surprise." You can get your total bitch on, get that thing changed. You know.
Maybe I should petition to get my street changed to some Civil War name instead of Picton.
Well, Picton, you know, actually it's West Picton, isn't it?
Picton West.
Yeah, there's a shitty section's East Picton.
Picton was some dude from, I don't know, he's some British dude. My town has so many British dudes named after it.
That tends to be what Ontario does. I mean,
yeah, the town founder was Tiger Dunlop.
I mean, you guys got Bette Midler on your money, so I mean, come on, you know.
Goderich was Lord Goderich, who was a member of Parliament.
That's okay. I have Lord Sandwich in my town. Same deal. I'm some British guy. Probably knew Ryan. Probably drank that Redbreast whiskey too.
Or Ryan.
Sorry, too soon.
Imagine like drinking because you have a sore throat, finding out it's COVID, and then being hungover the next day.
And then having your balls busted on social media. I can't believe you did that to him. Anyway.
Him meaning you? Or me meaning you did that to him?
Yeah. Yeah.
Ryan said Picton killed at Waterloo swearing in his top hat and tails.
Exactly.
My street's named after.
Was Mr. Peanut monocle. Yeah, Larry King died, Mary.
He did, yeah.
Yeah. And he's one of the many people in the world I thought was already dead. Apparently it wasn't. I thought he died like forever ago, you know. So that's too bad. But he was on that show, the Larry King Show. By coincidence, he was on that same show.
Oh,
which
interesting.
Is weird, you know?
That's really interesting.
I remember seeing him in the back when the Red Sox were the Dodgers in the World Series a couple years ago. He was sitting back there with that chick from that TV show, Mary Hart. I think were they married? I think they were.
Hi, Matthew. Jacob says all I can about AP Hill. He dies in Dinwiddie County, with literally no fucking help.
He died early April 2nd or 3rd, 1865. I think Sailor's Creek was April 5th or 6th, so it was probably not Sailor's Creek. It was probably 3rd Petersburg, one of those deals. But it was right around there. It was right around there when he died. But he was a guy, he got shot right through the heart. He got killed by a guy named Mock, I think it was.
Wow.
Thomas Mock. Yeah. He was a guy who made it almost to the very end.
I wonder if he didn't have his ham bone.
He survived the gonorrhea, Mary. Survived all the tough
bang
ones,
barn.
but he got killed. You know.
One of my favorite moments from this podcast over the last 5 months And it's funny, the reason why we're mentioning 5 months so much is because up until yesterday morning, I believe we were about to hit our 6 month mark.
Yes.
But Mary McClellan math kicked in, and I'm laying in bed at 5:30 a.m. and I'm thinking August to September is 1. September to October is 2. October to November is 3. November to December is 4. December to January is 5. And I had been
Yeah.
hyping up this 6 month thing. So I think I wrote you that note and took a picture of it where I was like, happy 6 months with the podcast, but I crossed 6 out and put 5.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a fast time, but yeah, 10,000 downloads is pretty cool though. But yeah,
Yeah.
the light of his burning penis finally went out. He's kind of like the Civil War ET, you know,
Poor AP Hill.
you know. Um, but but it's pretty funny. Didn't think I'd be thinking about AP Hill's penis today, Mary, admittedly. But thank you, Jim. I appreciate that. The nightmare that later on will thank you. But
But him
but
showing up at Antietam just out of fucking spite for 3 different individuals.
well, I mean that's the thing. Those are the things that get you historically, though. He saves the Confederate cause out of pure spite.
And one of them
Out of
is
pure spite
Stonewall Jackson.
against Jackson, because Jackson was putting everybody in court-martialing everybody. But the situation with McClellan with the girl and the Burnside with the money, it's just fun. It's just one of those things, you
You can
know.
just see him like Burnside is crossing the bridge, and then all of a sudden AP Hill shows up and he's like,
Yeah,
"Got
he's
my
like,
money,
hey.
sucker?"
I mean, they're probably like, yes, thank God Hill's here. He's like that, like that movie. Well, by $2, and that's why it was funny was when Burnside gave that $1,500 to Ebenezer McGee right at the Mud March. You wonder if that was his money. You'll never know. I mean,
I
who the
know.
hell
And
cares?
could you imagine if AP Hill got wind of that? He's like, "That fucker owes me money. How is he giving this dude money?"
Yeah, goes back to AP Hill's penis, Allie. Well, look at you, Allie, huh? That's a good point. At least know what the P in AP Hill stands for now.
I like how we always get back to this Reb tube.
The Reb tube.
That was great. We said
remember-
you said Red Tube. You were talking about a shop on Redbubble, but you said Red Tube.
Pretty
And
sure it
then-
was you who said that.
Will you stop trying to like rewrite history?
Just doing my own little lost cause, Mary. but no, that was all those guys. I mean, all that stuff at the very end of the battle was going through. You had all the Sheridan stuff going down with Warren. You at the very end. I mean, that whole Appomattox. I guess it's theoretically the Appomattox campaign, but
Yeah.
Sailors Creek, Third Petersburg. The street I'm named after, a guy named Charles Chipman was killed at that battle of Petersburg. And so his grave's right up the street. I got to go visit him one of these days.
Yeah,
I
you
did
do.
not too long ago, but so it's all those guys at that point seemed like they were Van Horn.
Howard has a good question. He said, "Where do you rank Sheridan compared to other Union generals?"
I think
So-
Sheridan had 2 big moments. He had Cedar
Yeah.
Creek, okay, and he had Stones River.
Yeah.
Okay. I think everything he did militarily, he overturned politically with what he did to Warren, right? At the
Yeah.
end of the war. I think he was kind of that short man syndrome. I think that
Mhm.
he was a good general who I think the power got a little to his head. So we were talking before about Grant specifically with wanting to take all the credit. I think that was a case for him. But Cedar Creek and certainly Stones River were his two brightest moments. But I don't like him though. I just think that the way everything played itself out, he had a huge ego, and I think he wanted to be there at the end with the musical chairs, Mary, that we talked about.
Don't do it.
Fuck. Was when the music stopped, he wanted to be one of the guys standing at the end for political reasons. That's my opinion on Sheridan. I mean, he's it's just the way it is.
I agree with you, and that's a great question, Howard. So thank you. Hey, Mike, take care. Have a good day. Got to read Andrew's comment before I talk about Sheridan here. I can't help but think of the Reliance mine whenever you guys talk about the Bang Barn.
Oh, one of the mines.
I am good. Weeks and I are gonna visit the Reliance mine.
Oh my God, the freaking Reliance mine. There is no. Oh God, no. Greater hive of scum and villainy.
Excited about that.
The mine's a little bit off. We have fun with the mine specific on Al's page on the Civil War Lampoon Facebook, which that and the Pickett's Buffet, those poor places. But it's pretty fun.
So my opinion on Sheridan is I don't like him as a person, but as a soldier, yeah, he had talent. He's, I think, in some ways a little bit overrated, but he does really well at Stones River. He does really well at Cedar Creek. I think, in the Shenandoah Valley, he is the right person to be doing that. And I don't think what he did in the Shenandoah gets talked about enough. Him going after Jeb Stuart was probably a good thing. And to see his battle of the egos though with Warren though, because I am team Warren all the way. I do not like that's one reason I don't like Sheridan at all, is what he did to Warren. And Warren was an arrogant bastard too. Supremely talented but arrogant bastard. But yeah, he's not one of my favorites, but I don't hate him. But I think he has his place in the Civil War victory. I think, he is kind of like, I guess, that trifecta of Grant, Sherman, Sheridan that helped to win the war. But then again, in that trifecta, does it need to have a fourth person in it? And I think that fourth person needs to be Meade. That I think Meade gets overshadowed by Sheridan a little bit too much. And I am team Meade all the way. And I think because of Sheridan, that's why Meade gets overshadowed, because I think he needs to be in that trifecta that won the Civil War over Sheridan.
Andrew, who had the biggest gun in the Civil War? Okay, well, wasn't Little Mac. I'll tell you that.
I'm gonna say.
I know it would be. There's a million different directions we go in that one. Yeah, there's some good Bitcoin opportunities, in case you're curious.
Yeah, but they didn't call him the Rock for nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Who knows? I like to think it was someone like Robert Gould Shaw, good Massachusetts guy.
Yeah.
Definitely wasn't someone on the Irish Brigade there. I'll tell you that.
No.
Right over your head.
No, okay. I heard that. I was just actually dealing with some spam.
Yeah, if we got spammed, that was unbelievable. It was okay.
Yeah, thanks for reporting it, Jen. Yeah, and I went and that person is now blocked, so they're not going to be here.
So sorry, Andrea.
Right, at least it's not spam for Confederate government bond investments as Ryan's ancestors had, I think, or money.
Exactly.
God.
Yeah.
This is my rifle. This is my gun. This one's for shooting. This.
That's a good movie.
And
Full
Allie
Metal
B.
Jacket right there.
Allie B.
Was that Full Metal Jacket? I think it was Full Metal Jacket. Jim, wasn't it? The movie, the Lion movie. I think it was. That was a good movie.
I think so. Allie B said, doesn't help either for Meade that Meade wasn't at Appomattox and Sheridan was. Not that was Meade's fault, of course. I believe he was sick. I think he was. But yeah, like there's this thing where I've seen like pictures of it where it's like Sheridan, Grant, Sherman as the victors of the Civil War. Mm-hmm. And I've always been like, why isn't Meade on there? Like you've got the guy commanding the Western Theater.
Well, wasn't that the one mistake that the Grant miniseries made, is they had Meade at Appomattox? Did we talk about that?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they had him at Appomattox.
That was the one mistake they made, is they had Meade at Appomattox. Of course, I was too busy toweling off after that cigar at Appomattox scene.
So was I.
Went outside to go take a cold one after that one.
I did too.
Long nap.
Trust me.
Anyway.
But yeah, like Sheridan, he definitely overshadows Meade in a lot of ways, which isn't fair, because I think Meade did a little bit more than Sheridan.
Mm-hmm. No, Al, we're talking about Appomattox. They had Meade at the courthouse. They had him with the surrender in the thing. We knew he was there because he was.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say that the miniseries had him inside the building, and they had, and so we knew that wasn't true. But yeah. But anyway, hey, Conforti, if you're still on, another Treehouse for you. This is that Vivid one, the best one they have right here. This one's super good. It's so good when it hits your lips. You're so good.
Ooh.
Oh, enjoy your Labatt's Blue there, Frenchie.
I do not drink swill. Let me tell you. My next beer is from Muskoka Brewery, and it is a Ebb and Flow Sour Plum and Boysenberry.
My next drink is from a brewery called Old Milwaukee. It is very good. But in case, it's okay. It's okay.
But yeah, I think Meade definitely gets overshadowed by Sheridan, and that's one reason I don't like him. My favorite, actually, another favorite Civil War stories of mine, and it didn't even happen during the Civil War, but it was at Sheridan's funeral, where Sheridan's buried at Arlington, and all his grave says is just Sheridan, which tells you all you need to know about the man right there.
Well, I was gonna say Jones.
Oh, David had a quiet, or not David, Jacob was wondering where the fucker sign is.
Oh, well, thanks for bringing that up, Jacob.
Oh, I have Poor
Fucker.
Savannah. Oh, my fucker sign is gone.
Oh well, that's a shame. That's a shame. But
Anyway, so at Sheridan's funeral, like obviously it's attended by many, many people, but there's one man seen standing there for hours after, just standing at his grave. And that man turned out to be Sherman, because Sherman was the last of the three of them left. And I think his death really affected him. And that, when I read that story in the Sheridan bio I have, which is called, I think it's called Swift Terrible Sword. It's a really good biography about him. I was told on a serious Civil War site that it is a fanboy biography, and I shouldn't
but
read it.
you get pissed on Twitter all the time for some reason. You just do. People, I don't think people realize how smart you are with this shit. You know, seriously, and they come at you, and I just sit back with my popcorn. I sit there. It's like those popcorn memes, and I just watch you rip them. And it's just, but it's funny though. You get these douchebags like mansplaining you Civil War shit, and you're like, well, actually, and I'm like, fuck yeah. It's fun. I will admit, it's one of my favorite parts of Twitter. Is watching one of these nameless fucks come at you with history stuff, and you just rip them in half. So it's definitely a lot of fun.
I try not to do the actually thing. I try to respond with, you know, like a Schitt's Creek gif and keep it lighthearted. But yeah, I take a lot of shit for Howard. I take just a lot of shit for my opinions. I always have, and I think it just comes with the territory of being a female Civil War nerd. You know, I take it on Facebook too. And it used to really bother me. And now I have learned in the last few months to kind of stand by my opinion and to keep at it, you know, and just to say, like, someone responded to me on Twitter the other day, like, that Howard was the only failed general to get the command he did. And I responded with, the person, yes, it was a man, referenced Chancellorsville and Gettysburg. And I said, I'm like, if that's how you are judging Howard as a failed general, then you need to apply that same terminology to Grant and to Sherman, specifically to Sherman for Chickasaw. And I never got a response back from him at all. But
well, I mean,
you know, but whatever, like, that's just like, you know, some of them I just kind of brush off, but others I you know, I do come back with, because I'm not going to let myself, and no one should feel this way. No one should ever feel like you have to back down from what you believe. And that is honestly one of the things that I love about Howard, is he never backed off his Christian values. And admittedly, I am not religious, but I admire him for his values. And the one thing that I've learned from studying him is that you should never back off your opinion, no matter what it is. And that's why I'm so strong in my opinion that Stonewall was the Claiborne of the East.
No, but I mean, it was, and you always stand by your opinion. I mean, I mean, I'll be honest. A lot of the people who are on this call right now, right, is between you and Jen Rowling and Pike and Jay Price and Biddles and Allie. I'll take those, your knowledge over most people, men's on Twitter. It's every fucking day. Are you kidding me? It's insulting to read that shit. And some of the stuff gets, you know, and not just about you, but just some of the other ones. I'll read some of the stuff people are right about, like half the people that is meant. And it's like, listen, I'll take any of those people's knowledge over half these freaking people. They watch the Ken Burns documentary and some of their Civil War experts.
Right? No, that and that's just it. And two, it's the whole, like, I'm trying to think of some other examples that I've had on there. I mean, the shit I took over Howard, I've taken shit over Sherman, I've taken shit over Claiborne. The Claiborne thing, I was told that, oh, you must be a Confederate sympathizer if you're reading a book about him. That's not the case. I'm reading a book about him because I like to study both sides of the war. But when I read about Missionary Ridge, I wanted to learn about the man that had thwarted Sherman, that had managed to beat him back against all the odds. And same with what he did at Ringgold Gap. I wanted to get to know who he was. You know, and I don't think anybody, like, whether you could study a Confederate general or a Union general, you should be put down for it, because we all have to have the knowledge to tell the stories, and nobody, especially females, should be made to feel bad. And I think there's some stigma around like, oh, you're a female, you can't possibly know military
No,
history.
but it's like we'll sit there and I'll sit there and say, does this person know more than you or Biddles or Rolling or Pike or any of those ones I mentioned? It's like, no, it's the whole thing is so asinine, but it's entertainment. I'll give them that.
Oh yeah, and I mean, admittedly, you've given me confidence to kind of fight back against them too, like but I try and fight back in a way that isn't putting them down. I don't want to resort to fighting with them, but I want to stand my ground and say, look, this is what I believe and why. Please just respect me for my opinion.
Exactly. Exactly. You guys know, like I've said it, I'll say it before, I'll say it again. You know more about this shit than anybody I've ever met. No question. And those other ones I mentioned, I'll take any of them over any of these other people. Anything.
Well, you know more about it than
I don't the genders. I mean, I never understood why everything's gender makes a fucking difference in the world about
no,
this
neither
shit,
have I. Neither have I.
Because at the end of the day, none of us were Union, none of us were Confederate, none of us fought. Every one of us learns and studies. It's whether or not you're a girl or a boy doesn't make a goddamn fucking difference. And that shit needs to end. It just needs to end because it gets very old. It gets very old.
It does. People are saying that.
Rant over on that.
Yeah, I'm sorry for ranting, guys. I like to try and keep it positive on here. I was trying to put a positive spin on that. Everybody's saying that I need to laminate my fucker sign. I probably will. It's going to be laminated and hang in my house in Gettysburg someday.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, Allie B, I didn't mean to make you sad. Isn't any biography a fanboy biography? I think so. I think this person didn't like Sheridan.
I mean, how many times have we said that? I mean, most biographies, that's why you got to read more than one thing, right? So it's like if someone sits there and says, the biography on Sheridan or Sherman or whoever, that's just one author's spin on it. Mm-hmm. And they're always going to have a spin, plus or minus, right?
Yeah.
That's why you got to, that's why you got to read as much as you possibly can,
Yeah, I mean,
social media, it's funny. It's funny. Like Lori, social media tends to bring out the worst in people. Didn't I just say that this morning?
You did. Yep,
Mary?
You did.
Didn't
you showed
same conversation.
You showed me a very good example of it, of something that I'm thankful, like, you and I never do on social media to anybody, which is the underhanded, kind of passive aggressiveness that happens. Like, I just tweet Civil War stuff because I'm, whatever.
Look, the social media, don't ever take shit on social media from anybody, especially the fucking people who have fake usernames, fake pictures, and they I mean, if your name is Jefferson Davis and you got a picture of Jeff Davis, guess what? It's not Jefferson Davis.
Yeah, that's who Jacob referenced. The Jefferson Davis Twitter account goes after Jacob all the time, which is
it's now Twitter. I will say, I mean, the Civil War Twitter world, I think, is it's a higher level. Twitter as a whole is a cesspool. It just is.
Yeah.
Okay, especially with all this politics shit finally being over. But I think, but stand your ground, especially you guys. You Civil War, the women here in the Civil War stuff, because you guys know your shit more than almost any guy I know. So fucking fling it. Just fucking fling it. Don't put up with the bullshit. Do not put up with the bullshit.
No. And I've got one guy that has been constantly responding to me. He's hiding behind a name. Same with Jacob and the Jeff Davis guy. He's been, so I made, I said some reference to Stonewall being the Claiborne of the East. It was me retweeting your Stonewall picture, or no, I responded to Claiborne of the East. And the guy said, he's like, starts going on this rant about Jackson. This other guy responds like, oh, I've tried to have this argument with her before. Like, I felt like, just fuck you, dude, for that one. But I just was like, whatever, walk away from it.
But I've said this a million times. The Civil War people, the Twitter historian people, the people who just read the stuff, there's no better group than the Civil War people overall, because something, they come from all different backgrounds, different parts of the country, different beliefs, politics, whatever you want to call it. But when you're talking about this, it takes a different level of understanding and intelligence to really get this.
Yeah, right? And I got to say, this group here that we have, especially you guys that are showing up to our Facebook Live, some of you have been here for every single one, which is awesome. And we are grateful for anybody that comes on here and joins us. But even on our forum, like if you go onto our forum, there is like, I have never seen mansplaining happen. I've never seen mansplaining happen on here. I've never seen anybody disrespected for their opinion. So you guys are like really, really awesome. And
Well, this group is a Civil War Breakfast Club. This
it
group
is exactly, yes, this is the Civil
you
War
know,
Breakfast Club right here. And everybody is like, everybody brings something different to the table. Like I learned so much in the round table the other night, you know, about religion in the Civil War that I had never thought about before. And I'm really happy that we've given people, like, you know, that we have that platform once a month for people to come on and just be able to talk freely about stuff and not be
it
talked
was
at.
good. The round table, I just sat back. Right, I was fucking exhausted, but I just sat back and listened, and you know, until Ryan went off the cliff about, you know, it
Ryan was
sounded
awesome.
like, "We're going to the quad. We're gonna take it." You know, he did
Poor
his whole he did his
Ryan.
whole old school thing.
When his wife walked in, that was the ultimate form. Like, ooh, he's dead.
It's like fucking Jesus.
Yes. Ryan said,
But no,
there'll never be a word for woman splaining because they don't need it. It's just a look that says you don't need an explanation, fucker.
That's true. It's true. It's just the whole thing is so fucking goddamn. But seriously, it reminds me. It reminds me of that George Carlin skit where he says, you know, he says, and it's true. He says, if there is a God, it has to be a man, right? Because no woman would have fucked everything up this bad. Had to have been. And I always remember that. I always remember that from George Carlin. Rest in peace. So,
David has a really nice comment. He's like, male or female, it doesn't matter. You two are the most knowledgeable historians I know. Thank you.
Oh wow!
I
Thank you so
don't.
much.
Wow,
That's
thank you.
not
I don't
bad.
feel like I still have so much to learn, and like I learn so much from Darren all the time. Like I said, like I learn, like everybody here is so knowledgeable, and like Darren is definitely my, like he knows more about it than anybody else, which is why I'm lucky to be able to do this podcast with him. But we're also lucky to be able to jump on here with you guys as well and have these conversations and learn. And also, like, the thing I like about it is there's humor thrown into it. There's so many people that take themselves seriously. And
Right.
I think with history, you know, yeah, like I'm serious about it, but I also like to joke around about it because guess what? The generals were joking around about it. The soldiers were. Howard is a fucking comedian in his memoirs at some point. He has this, and I think it's the New Englander in him, self-deprecating sense of humor. Like he totally owns shit like Orangeburg. He
Whereas I call it a
owns
self-defecating sense of humor.
Scorbutic.
Exactly. That poor guy. But you know what though? Look, the reality is you're covering these tangents here, but again, to understand this stuff, you just need to have a good sense of the history, but also the ability to really see both sides of it. And having a sense of humor definitely helps, right?
Oh yeah.
Because if you can have this stuff with a sense of humor, have no ego on it. That's great about all these people here. It's great with these people. So
Yeah.
um,
Well, that's like you and I. Like we don't have an ego in this. We're not in it for. I know we talked about the 10,000 downloads, but that was an exciting thing for us. We're not in for the numbers and all that. We're in for the content, the quality, what we learn from you guys, and just it's the two of us literally having a conversation every Tuesday night when we record while we're drinking beer, you know, and that's
well, it was impressive the other night, Mary. When we had a round table, and anybody who's on this live, definitely join us for the round table if you haven't, because I'll be honest. I learned, I mean, I just sat back and learned so much shit. We were talking about the religion thing. We were talking about all these different things.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff was news to me too. So I'm like, this is awesome. So it's just being able to sit here and learn and listen. And because the more you study this, the more you learn and the more people who come on this. So definitely jump on. And we give Ryan shit about, about the whole Redbreast whiskey thing, but he knows his shit, and he was flinging, he was preaching. There was a lot of good stuff he was talking about. And Biddles, my God, she was. I mean, you're another one, Allie. And we were talking about this before.
They Ryan and Biddles are both like they were like, you know, it was really awesome to see all the knowledge that they had and how they're able to talk with each other. The other thing is too is like it looks like there is friendships forming out of this group too, which is awesome. Right. The one thing about Ryan too is like he is very early Civil War, which you don't meet many people like that. So he's got a knowledge in that field. And like Allie is just kind of like she's like you and I, Darren. She's like, you know, more the all of like everything about the Civil War. But everybody always brings good discussions. There was that
she knows her shit though.
Wow. Oh yeah, she does. But there was that one guy too that when Ryan brought up the religion thing, he mentioned the paper he'd written about Lee's army, and he read some of his paper, So it's really cool to see people that comfortable, like reading those quotes, that they feel that they can do that, which is really, really awesome. I think a
And
lot of
Jacob,
times,
Jacob jumped on with this brag sucks every so often, which was really good too.
yeah.
But in all seriousness, the round table is really, really cool because it just gives you an opportunity to go on and speak your minds. And there's no opinion that's wrong. And you know what? And Al, you didn't talk too much at all. It was great because you know
No,
what?
nobody
I,
talks
I,
too
I
much.
honestly I talk too much. I do.
No, you
So it
don't.
was great. It was great for me to sit back the other night and just sit there and just listen to you guys go because it is the best education you'll ever have is just these
A
conversations. That's what's great
relaxed
about it.
environment. There's no
Yeah.
tension. It's not about like, and like
No
I
one,
said,
no
like
one's, no one's
no one knows
calling
it
me a
all.
fucker. I'm not getting the finger. I can sit back and just relax, you know. But seriously though, but some of the stuff that the group was talking about the other night, it was just I just sit back and enjoy it. It was great. It's like the best master's level history class
It
you'll
was.
take. And like we were saying before, we were giving Ryan shit, but the stuff he was talking about is the stuff that you just don't hear,
Oh yeah,
right?
it's legit stuff for sure.
But definitely so anyway, so the reality is if you haven't been on yet, definitely do it because it's really, really cool. And there was some people who weren't on. Mark wasn't on, and who else wasn't on?
Mark was on.
No, he wasn't.
Mark B from Gettysburg. Yeah, he was.
No, he was. I mean the other one, Boomer.
Oh yeah.
Fucker. Okay, good. Okay, you just wrote that out. At least you spelled it right for a change. But no, but
Don Phonics worked for me.
definitely jump on. Allie B is my personal favorite. Hey, it's okay. She
Yeah,
knows her stuff. You know,
yeah,
she
she
definitely
does.
she definitely does. Hey, I'm glad. You know what? I'm glad you like Allie.
No, she's
She's
cool. She's
awesome.
cool. Really like her. It's nice to
You
see
know,
another. I love there seems to be a great balance of male female in this. Not that gender whatever matters, but it's good to see there's others out there, talking about this.
no, but you know what though? You know, honestly, I root for you guys though. I root for you and Rolling and Biddles, all the ones I mentioned,
Yeah,
Pike, because you guys know your stuff. And it just I think there are too many people, especially females, who are afraid to state their opinion on the Civil
yeah.
War because the douchebags who are gonna mansplain and rip them
Dude,
down.
I
And
was
and you
like
but you
that
know
for a
and all
long
and you know
time.
what though, and all you guys stand your ground, which is awesome. And it's great to do. And you just need to do more of it. That's all. That's all I'm saying. You know?
One reason I admittedly do it is because I see a lot of females that don't stand their ground, and I wouldn't consider myself to be like a feminist or anything like that. I mean, I'm for equal rights and all that, but I sometimes put myself out there to show other females like, look, you can do this and you can
Mhm.
stand up to these people that are maybe mansplaining to you, and it's okay because other people are going to have your back and respect you. It's a small percentage of people that are going to mansplain to you. You should never have to, male or female, you should never ever have to back off your opinion. If your favorite general is happens to be William Rosecrans, go for it. Tell me why. I'm not going to judge you for it, but tell me why, because
I
I
never
want to know
understood
what
that.
makes you tick,
I
that you
never
love
understood
Rosecrans.
that your opinion is wrong mentality. And there's a lot of that in social
There
media,
is.
Mary, right?
There,
There's a
there,
lot of
there
it.
is.
And it doesn't make it so obviously you like Howard and you got a million reasons why you like
Yep.
Howard. Okay. And people, there are people who like Sherman, people like
Mhm.
Rosecrans, people like Grant, people like Longstreet, whatever. Do you. Do
Yeah, just
you.
do it because
But
as long as there's differing opinions, we're going to learn from each other and we're going to learn why. You know, John P and Allie B are Team Grant, which is awesome. Ryan loves Carney, Pike loves Grant too. There's all these different things that go through and make us tick in the Civil War, and there's these different generals, that we latch onto us that kind of quote unquote call to us.
But what kind of circus level dick do you got to be to sit there and tell you, Mary, you liking Howard is wrong and you're
which
stupid,
I've been told
or
before.
right, okay, or someone going to anybody, and
Mhm.
I never got it. But you know what though,
Neither did
but
I.
just but read your stuff and bring your history to it. But I think if most people like we do on like in this podcast is as we study these people and we look into their histories and their stories, everyone's kind of a positive and a negative, and it's
Exactly.
the truth's always somewhere in the middle. But like a Rosecrans, right? We talk about him,
Yep.
how much impact he had that people don't even focus on. And it's next week, we're going to, admittedly, people, we are going to be doing a podcast on John Wilkes Booth. And I know people aren't going to like that too much because it's going to speak to him in a positive vein. But there is a definite different person from March 1865 before and after. And we're gonna have an author on by the name of Lisa Samia, who does a lot of speaking on that concept about the relationship between John Wilkes Booth and his sister Asia Booth. That's going to be very, very intriguing to a lot of people. And just go into it with an open mind, because you know what? We're studying people. Okay. We want to look at these people as different individuals and not by the mainstream, and just see what the scoop is. That's what it's all about, right?
Exactly. No, and I'm looking forward to it, because Booth is not somebody that just appears April 14th, 1865, shoots Lincoln, and then dies on April the 26th, right? Like I hope I got that date right. There's more to him than that. You know, the fact that people said about him, you know, oh my God, how could he do that? So I'm really looking forward to doing that. I just want to say hi to Bjorn, who's on here. He works at a really cool bookstore called the Abraham Lincoln Bookshop. I hope I'm getting that right. It's in Chicago. If you Google that, it will come up. They have some really great, not only do they have books, they've got some awesome historical documents on there too, I think. And they do some really great things on Facebook as well with different authors. I'm just getting caught up here in these comments. Ryan and his crack. That's from.
Hey, Ryan, I promise you, my friend, next time we do one of the roundtables, I'm going to have the Redbreast going with me here too. So you and I will go down together. I promise. You'll be done with COVID by then, so we'll be ready to go.
Jacob's wondering, Mare's Canadian. Where's the maple syrup? I'll bring it with me when we all hang out. I'll bring you guys some Canadian maple syrup. You can get it from Vermont too. Poor Ryan, he reached too close to the sun.
Yeah, we've all been there. But it's funny though. Speaking of Booth, Mary, so you and I, we've talked about Booth a billion friggin' times. I mean, there's been some great books, American Brutus, that we talked about before. There's so many good ones. But the Asia Booth Diary, the one that you are reading now, and you're not even paying attention, which is totally cool. So I can say whatever I want.
Am Asia Booth Diary. You and your like.
Do you remember that time you gave me shit for playing on my phone during a round table the other day when I was making a Bernie meme? You gave me a fucking hard time about it. You totally did. You fucking such a dick sometimes. But it was you. But seriously,
Mama.
Okay, whatever. But there I was going with this. I totally forgot about it. But I think when we talk about the Booth thing, it'll be okay, fine. You can have your little son if you want. But I think it'll be interesting, because I think that's a great book. You want to talk about book enabling. That Asia Booth Diary on John Wilkes is a fascinating read, because it's basically her and John Wilkes growing up in that family on Tudor Hall and in Baltimore. And it's so different than the history you think it is. It's so different. And we'll have a lot of fun with that with Lisa on Tuesday when we talk about that.
Yeah, no, and I have started reading it, and I can second what Darren says about book enabling. Definitely look for Asia Booth's memoirs, and get the one with I think it's been edited by Terry Alford, who wrote a biography about John Wilkes Booth a couple of years ago, which won an award.
I didn't like that book, by the way.
I didn't like it. I didn't like it much either.
That was the Fortune's Fool, right?
Yeah, I did not like it at all. It started talking about how he was like losing his voice and he was never going to be an actor again. And I'm like, what the no.
Hey, Jim, real quick, that book, it's like 100 pages. You could read that in probably a day. Whip through it. It's a fast read. If the book you're talking about is the Asia book, it's really fascinating. It's got a lot of historical, really racial things in it that you have to kind of work through, because it's the way they talk about it, because it's just unabridged. But it's definitely a good read. So question. But yeah, I didn't like the Alfred book. I didn't like the book. When I emailed Lisa, so it's funny was when we first started talking with Lisa about her coming on, she kind of book enabled me on the Asia book, and she goes, read the book, tell me what you think. So I read the book and I texted her and I said, what do you think? And Alfred has that first chapter, and she goes, let me know what you think about that. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty good. And I guess she'd gone back to him and said, I thought it was good, whatever. But it was interesting. But I think when you read that book, it just gives you such a look. None of us, no one here is going to sit here and tell you Booth what he did was blah.
It was
That's
horrible. It was wrong.
but that's not where we're going with this. But it's interesting to understand the psychology and what created that. And that's what her diary does. And it's a really fascinating read. It's going to be a fun talk, I think. I'm really looking forward to this one.
Oh, me too. Me too.
know,
No, she knows her stuff. It's going to be great to have somebody on to talk about this. And I mean, obviously, we're going to do more episodes about the assassination. Andrew says, I used to shy away from Civil War conversations because I'm just a Civil War, just a silly girl. No, you're not. Don't feel like an
Andrea, I'll take your knowledge over most people.
Yeah,
I know
same
about
here,
it,
Andrea. Same here, Andrea. Like, the three of us, like we, in our little Facebook chat, like we talk Civil War. I see the stuff that you post on there. So yeah, like you know more than you think you do, and never ever shy away from it. I mean, I had the imposter thing for a long time, and I'm trying to step away from that because
I've gone to battle with Andrea, and I've got banned on Facebook pages.
Andrea she stands her ground about Grant as I'm talking about the shit that I think he's done, and that's awesome. But like the thing is like we don't disrespect each other while we're doing it, and that's the important thing. I mean, I value Andrea as not just like a really good friend, but as the she's a very knowledgeable person when it comes to history as well. Everybody
she knows her shit. She's a Laker fan though, which is shaky, but that's okay. It's a long story with that fucking Magic Johnson, but it's okay. But seriously, but the problem with Fortune's Fool, Jim, as you mentioned, that is it stays on the cliche thing, and it talks about all the things that happen with Booth like they're fact when they're it's completely speculative. There's that really famous story where they're listening to Lincoln speak outside the White House, and he's talking about blacks having the ability to vote, right? And he has that whole word when he said, he says, you know what this means, blank citizenship, vote citizenship, and that story has never been corroborated. Okay, but it's been made into the mainstream of historical truth because of that reason. But the only person that collaborated was Lewis Powell, and then he's changed the stories 10 times either.
He did.
So it's a good,
like it's a good his name.
It's a good narrative to try to understand, like, okay, to paint Booth as the monster, right?
Exactly.
But there's no proof it ever happened, and a lot of people who were there said no, it didn't happen. The other story, speaking of Andrea, we talked about this one day online. Andrea, was a story where when Grant and Julie were leaving town, when Booth rode up and saw them. And that story's not been corroborated either. A lot of people think that hasn't been true too. But there's a lot of historical things thrown into that is kind of been made into historical facts, but it's more historical propaganda than fact. And it's never been proven. And so as you read these stories and you hear these accounts, everybody with a mustache was arrested on April 14th.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's how he looked like. So is it possible that a guy riding a horse with a mustache rode up to see Grant, who was the rock star of the day, and they saw him? That's the thing.
Yeah.
Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But those rumors are made fact by like Alfred's book. He makes them as fact. And that's the only problem I have with that book, is that he doesn't talk about the fact that this is speculative, this is possible. He makes it that this happened. And he takes the cliches and makes them fact. Beyond that, it's a good book. I think the rest of it's really, really good. American Brutus is by far the gold standard.
I love American Brutus.
There's a book by a guy named Anthony Pish called They Killed Papa Dead, which is really, really good about him.
There's Blood on the Moon.
Blood on the Moon's really, really good.
My Thoughts Be Bloody, which is about John and Edwin.
I just think that Fortune's Fool takes the booth. I think Fortune's Fool has beyond just between you and I, okay, and everybody else, historically factual. I think it's not much different than the Eisenschimmel book. Okay, as far as history, because it takes the historical cliches and make them fact. Eisenschimmel's though is the worst, and that's the one that but it's important to read. But you got to read Isaac Amish. Eisenschimmel, and you know what? And read Find the Spades too. Read all of them, because it's. I mean, obviously Booth didn't survive the Garrett's Farm like Find the Spades says, but it's a good read. It's interesting, but just the more you read, just question what you read. Don't take it for factual. And
Exactly.
that's where Alfred goes off the deep end with Fortune's Fool. That's just my point.
Yeah, exactly. And just to add to what you said about like not just like the thing that happened outside the White House, but also the grant thing. There was a really good point made in the documentary Killing Lincoln, which is not the same as the fucking book with the
Mm.
same title, that, you know, everybody wanted to be there and wanted to have a role in this historical event. And everybody, and Sherman says it in his memoirs too, you can have 100 people in the same room experiencing the same thing. And even, you know, you look at some of the stuff that Howard and Sherman experienced together, like Columbia, for example, how differently they wrote about it, and they were in the same place at the same time, and they write about it differently, they experience it differently. So you're not gonna have the same story about everything, but you're also gonna have people, it's a Lincoln assassination, they're gonna want to seem like they're there. Like when Grant found out that he was a target, and Julia remembered the guy looking in the carriage with the mustache, of course she's going to think, my God, it was Booth. But he wasn't there. It's been like, has it not been substantiated that he was not there? And it's the same with the whole, like what he said, that means blank citizenship. Of course, that story is going to take off because it makes him into an absolute monster. What he did was horrible, but we're looking at, you know, God versus demon, right? In this.
Well, we're going to do a podcast someday on the Lincoln conspirators, not just Booth, but the resume. So a couple of things, I'm reading these comments. So Lewis Powell, we'll talk about him real quick, and then we'll talk about Davy Harold, right? So Lewis Powell, I mean, this is a guy who was a member of the 2nd Florida who fought on the second day at Gettysburg as part of Lane's brigade, who fought on the second day. He got shot in the wrist, and he was taken to the seminary, another seminary, where Gettysburg College is now, old dorm. And he was basically, he had a background in medicine. He would help animals, and he was good at medicine. So his nickname growing up was Doc. So even though he was a prisoner, they had him help some of the veterans, the Confederate people who were hurt, back to health. He gets taken to Baltimore, and he gets taken to a prison. And he ends up he has a girlfriend named Mary Branson, another Mary, who's a pain in the ass, by the way. Ooh. So she literally takes a $10 bill, she puts it in a cake, just like the stories, and she gives it to a guard who takes the money and sneaks he sneaks Powell out. He escapes, he goes to Baltimore, he stays in a hotel, or not a hotel, but like an apartment, which is actually on Utah Street. So if you're a baseball fan, you like the Orioles, in right field, there's that warehouse. That's where Lewis Powell lived for a little while. And he beat the hell out of a slave, a woman, and he ended up escaping. Oh so God. he ends up going to a family named the Paynes, a guy named Lewis Payne. So he ends up going to that house. And Lewis Payne was a child. There was a Lewis Payne, a younger child too, named Lewis Payne. He ended up assuming that name because he stayed in that house. He joins the Mosby's Rangers. He ultimately ends up joining up with John Wilkes Booth because he gets connected to John Surratt, because he was part of that underground network of the conspiracy going through Baltimore. So that's how the whole Powell Payne thing name works itself out. Davy Harold was probably autistic. Okay, he was probably on the spectrum pretty hard.
Well, like Braxton Bragg was too.
Right. But he was a guy who was a pharmacy clerk. He literally delivered castor oil to the White House to Abraham Lincoln before the whole thing happened. He was someone who was infatuated with John Wilkes Booth because he was a celebrity. So he kind of fell into that whole thing with him. So as you study these conspirators going forward, every one of them, what's interesting about the Lincoln conspirators, you talk about the 7 deadly sins, every one of them represented a different sin.
Yep.
Right? Gluttony, greed, you name it. That's what's fascinating about that whole thing. But a guy like a Harold was someone who was totally played. A guy like Atzerodt was totally played. Powell was different, though. Powell was a killer. He just was.
He was. Yeah, he was. You know? And Mudd was more into it than what he thought. And like my mother and I, like, she is very much a Mudd was innocent. And I've always been like, I remember my parents recorded some movie about Dr. Mudd for me when I was like 7 years old, and I kept watching it. And my mom's like, "Do you think he was innocent?" And I'm like, "No, he's guilty." Like I was like, I had my opinion about it. Um, Darren, this is something I want to read to you from Ryan. I come at this with zero knowledge beyond the shooting in the theater. The lawyer in me would like to review the evidence with any conclusions drawn from me. Ryan, you are going to love Assassin's Accomplice.
Mhm.
Yeah, as a lawyer, you definitely need to study that, especially what happened with Mary Surratt. That would be really interesting.
This
Yeah.
is your book, my friend, right here.
Um,
There's also a book called The Judicial Murder of Mary Surratt that you should read, that talks about the details of the trial. But in all seriousness, Ryan, read Assassin's Accomplice by Kate Larson. Now, she's very much on the anti-Mary wagon, okay? But if you read it and you talk about the actual evidence, it's when you study these people and you realize the human psychology of this entire assassination conspiracy, it's fascinating. It really, really is. Um, and there's more to it than that. But the Harold thing, the Atzerodt thing, the Powell thing. Powell was somebody who was an amatron, whatever the phrase is. He was a wired killer, is what he was.
He was. You can see it.
But he was also 21 years old.
Isn't he the youngest, right?
He was the youngest one. And you know what's amazing about him is, and I know we'll talk more about the conspiracy about this, but when they were all executed, I mean, it wasn't like today with his appeals and there's all this other stuff. And you can make your case about Mudd, why he should have been there and all that stuff. But forget him for a second. Let's just talk about the 4 people who were executed: Mary Surratt, David Harold, Lewis Powell, and George Atzerodt, the 4 of them, right? Atzerodt got played. He was the guy who didn't want to do it.
Yep.
Harold was played. Okay. Surratt, you can make a case about Surratt. There are people who think that she knew about 100%. There are people who think that she didn't. She definitely was not innocent, but I don't think she was guilty, if that makes any sense.
They didn't deserve to hang. That's the thing. Like Mary, Atzerodt, and especially like in Harold too. None of them deserve to hang.
But when you talk about, here's the thing: was they talked about when she was riding back with Louis Weichman from Surratt's Tavern that night of the assassination.
Yeah.
There's fireworks going off over the town because the Confederacy had surrendered, and Weichman says, "Oh, look at the fireworks! Everyone's so happy." And there's that quote where she says, "Well, their joy will be turning to gloom soon." But this is all hearsay. No one knows if that's even true, right? So, but the thing that gets Mary, though, and this is the one thing, was the night of the assassination. This came out afterwards. It wasn't part of the trial, so it wasn't fabricated. There was a guy named James Smoot who came to her house and basically said, your son owes me money for the boat that he was going to use to help kidnap Lincoln and go across the Potomac. And she says to him, "You need to go away. This whatever they're going to do is going to be going on tonight. You need to leave." So she knew something was up the night of the assassination. Whether she knew it was a killing or not, who knows? But going back to going back to what I was going to say, but going back to Powell, right? So they're all getting executed, and the thing about it is no one thought Surratt was going to get hanged.
I know.
So when they made her noose, they kind of fabricated. They just kind of made a half-ass noose, and she died instantly, which was so surprising considering the news was. It took Lewis Powell 7 minutes to die.
Yep.
And the ironic thing about that was they wanted him to die quick because they said he was a killer, just get rid of him quick. But he literally kicked on the news for 7 whole minutes till he finally died. He strangled to death out of all of them. The other three died pretty quickly. But it took them 7 minutes to die, and they just watched them die.
That is,
right.
Reading the description in American Brutus was really tough for me. Like it got to me. I remember like I was listening to it and I had to stop what I was doing, and I was like, Jesus, this is horrific. But the entire time I'm questioning, where the fuck is Mudd? Like, he's down in fucking Florida.
Well, Mudd got sent to Tortugas because he was a doctor, and a doctor wouldn't do such a thing. That was the social the structure. In my own personal opinion, Surratt should have been survived. Mudd should have hanged. In my opinion, because people don't realize Mudd went to Washington, D.C. to introduce John Surratt to John Wilkes Booth in December of 1864. right before Christmas time, and
He had way more
that's all it
involvement
is.
in it than what he led on. He definitely played the surgeon doctor card in his favor. I think a lot of what he said was like bullshit at the trial. Like he just
You know,
he's the one I've always thought. I'm like, why were you, if anybody was on the gallows, it had to be him. You know,
Mhm.
not Mary, not
Now if
Harold
you go now
Atzerott.
if you go to Fort McNair now in Washington, which is where the site of the execution was, where the gallows is a tennis court now.
Mhm.
That's where it's a tennis court, but the building is still there where they did the actual trial. And you can once a year you can go there and you can go in there and visit it, and they have the entire room still set up the way it was. So it's
Mhm.
pretty cool.
No, I'd love to see that. And I have to say, I enjoy talking about the assassination because there are some places on Facebook that you can't talk about it like this. Like you cannot say Mary Surratt should not have hung because then, my God, you're saying what they did was good to Abraham Lincoln. But I think the thing with this is like Lincoln has been elevated on such a pedestal. And don't get me wrong, he is one of my favorite historical figures. He's not my favorite. He's not my favorite historical figure, but he's one of them. I think in some ways he's seen in this almost godlike status that is wrong, that takes away from who he was as a person. And I
Mhm.
think that's why there's the perceptions about the assassination that there is, that people like you bring it up in a room full of like Lincoln people
Well, good luck with that.
and you're going to be like run out of town, and I don't think that's right. Just because you say Mary Surratt should not have hung, Mary Surratt was not as guilty as what they say, does not mean you're condoning what John Wilkes Booth did. It means you're looking
Mhm.
at the evidence. And I think we're also doing a disservice to Lincoln to elevate him to that status. Lincoln was a lawyer. Lincoln would have looked at that evidence. And the thing I always ask is, do you think if Lincoln had looked at that evidence, if it had been somebody else that had been shot, that he would have had those people hung? No, I don't think he would have.
Well, that it falls on Stanton and it falls on McClellan.
Absolutely.
Those are the two evil people. But Jacob got to hold 1860. Right, Jacob, I actually have an 1862 Enfield Tower rifle that was used at the Battle of Gettysburg. I have one.
He
How cool is
does.
that? So that's my pride and joy. It cost more than my first car, but I actually
Ooh.
got hell. Okay, but I actually have one of those. It's really cool. You know what's cool about it too, Jacob? It has the soldier's initials carved into the stock, which is really really cool. So I have one of those. That's my pride and joy. That's my favorite Civil War memorabilia. So
You have a sword too.
I have a sword. I do.
Ooh.
I have an infantry sword. I have that. I have a bunch of Civil War stuff. I have a whole bunch of original stuff. But I have that. But when I go to Gettysburg once in a while, I'll take the gun with me. And I remember when I bought that rifle off of an antique guy, and it was all authenticated and all that. But I remember the guy telling me, he goes, just so you know, he goes, a lot of these, yeah, Jake, I'll send you a picture. He goes, he goes, just so you know, this rifle has been in my family since the battle. He goes, you live in Massachusetts? He goes, when you leave the state of Pennsylvania, he goes, it'll be the first time this rifle's left the state of Pennsylvania
Wow.
since the Confederates brought it in from Virginia.
That's awesome.
I was like, whoa. And I was like, I remember going over the border from Pennsylvania to New Jersey, thinking this is the first time this rifle's been out since, because it was a Confederate gun, it was an Enfield. So it was since it was brought in from that area. So I thought that was pretty cool. So
That's awesome. I want to say a quick hello to Ben, who just popped on. Ben, you are the winner of Lee's retreat, by the way.
That's Frail.
Berg.
Yeah, you missed the big announcement. You're one of our winners, man.
Yep.
So thanks for your donation. So I'm going to be mailing to you the book on the Lincoln retreats, the Gettysburg retreat. So you're gonna have to send us your address, send us the message to the podcast message, email, Twitter, or Facebook, whatever the fuck you want to do.
Info@breakfastclub.com, because guess what?
Okay, fine.
Right.
She likes her website, but send that in though, seriously, because I'm going to mail you the book on Monday. So send us the address. So you are going to get, which one did he get? The retreat.
Yeah. Retreat from Gettysburg.
So you're going to get the autographed book of this one. So that Frail, it's all yours. So I'll be mailing this to the Ocean States. So very cool.
Yeah. Very happy you won it, Ben. You've been a great supporter of us, and we really appreciate that you participated in the raffle that we had too. So that's awesome. Everybody, we appreciate that you participated in it. It was awesome.
And you know what though? I'll tell you honestly, this book is awesome. I think I said this at the beginning of this. This is my favorite.
I can't wait to read it
because it tells and we've said this in one of these previous podcasts, is that people think the Battle of Gettysburg ended when Lee said, "It's all my fault. It's all my fault.
Yeah.
I pray to you. It's all my fault." That's like leaving a ball game in the 6th inning, because the rest of the battle takes place after that. And being able to read this, the retreat, Monterey Pass, and Falling Waters, and all the stuff that takes place all the way through Staunton, Virginia, and Bunker Hill, Virginia. It's such a cool post-battle. This battle's won the entire way. So Ben, you're going to really enjoy it. But
that's the one he wanted too. He just said that.
Oh, sweet.
That's awesome.
In that side, so well, so that's awesome. Congrats for that. But I'm glad we're doing this in the book club, and I'm glad that these authors are very receptive to helping us out with this one. But it's a great book, Mary. It is.
It's the only one I haven't. So I'm partway through Black Iron Mercy, which Allie B commented a little while ago that she loved the book. So if you've we do have over on our forum, we do have a book club thingy over there, which you can go in there and talk about the books that we're reading. And I think somebody has already started talking about Black Iron Mercy in there, but it was asking about it. But yeah, if any of you who have finished it want to start a thread about Black Iron Mercy, by all means, go ahead and you guys can start discussing that. Which reminds me, we have set the date for our first book club meeting.
Oh, good. Glad you mentioned that. I forgot all that.
March 31st, from 6 till 7:30ish. We will be getting together to discuss the book. We are going to set the other book club titles this weekend, because I am aiming to send out a newsletter about the book club tomorrow. Or a little like info thing about the book club.
That'll be a lot of fun. So has anybody who's read Black Iron Mercy, I know Allie mentioned it. Do you guys liking it? Are you enjoying it? I mean, throw in the comments what you think about it, because I love this book. I think it's such a good,
I'm halfway through. I'm enjoying it. But that's why I said too, like, if you guys want to go discuss it over on the forum, there is a spoiler-free discussion going on right now about it, just asking how the book is. But if you guys want to start a discussion which has the spoilers in it, go ahead and do that. That's why one of the reasons we created the forum was because we know not everybody can make the Zoom call. But yeah, it's happening March 31st.
And that's March 31st. It's a Wednesday, right?
Yes.
So that'll be cool. So what was it, 6 to 7:30 or so?
7:30-ish. Yeah.
So Ryan, make sure you bring the Redbreast for that one. That'll be a good one.
And Jim's going to start reading Black Iron Mercy around March 1st. Yeah, it won't take you long to finish, Jim. It's a good read. Like, I can't put it down. And Allie B said the same thing. She can't put it down either.
It's just a very, when Mary and I were talking about these books, we wanted to come up with some different ideas. And a couple of years ago, I saw that book and I got it. And I've always been kind of skeptical of the historical novel thing, but I like Killer Angels. So I figured this one might be halfway decent. So I read that and I just fell in love with it. It was just something about it, which is
really good.
It's so vivid and so gripping. So I'm like, oh, this book. So when we were talking about books, I wanted to get that one on there just because it was such a good read. The other ones are really, really good. I have not read Dr. Rubin's book. I'll read that one. But the Dr. Kate's book.
I'm reading them all, even though I've read them. I'm reading Dr. Rubin's book again. I read it for some of the Columbia. She's a very engaging writer. Yes, Ben, it is March 31st, Wednesday, March 31st.
And it is gonna be a Zoom meeting. So what'll happen, Andrea and everybody else? So Mayor will send out. So we have a list of people. So email us if you're interested in going. Okay. And I'm skipping the freezing. All right.
Oh.
Must be Andrea's shitty internet over there in fucking Kentucky. But anyway, so email us. And so what we'll do is the boss over here will email you a link to the Zoom call. And so we'll all sign on. So hopefully we get a big group. I think it's going to be a lot of people. A lot of people have been signing up.
Yeah, we've already had a lot of people signing up for it too. So, but yeah, this weekend I'm going to be hopefully sending out tomorrow, just kind of like a newsletter type thing to everybody who has signed up for the book club, just to let them know when the dates are and the books and just kind of what the format is going to be for it. And then, yeah, I am Ben, you are the boss, Mayor.
She is the boss.
No, I'm like Sherman. I don't want that shit. I don't want that shit. I'm just a soldier like Howard.
Yeah, I'm just
I'm the adult in the room like Howard was at Columbia. There we go.
You're the adult in the room?
I'm the adult in the room. That'll change tonight at 11:45 when you're getting the I just met you.
Call me maybe. Do. Fuck.
Ryan said, she who must be obeyed may say hello next time in purely supervisory capacity. We would love her to say hello to us, Ryan. We would love to meet her.
I woke up that next morning. It was a Thursday morning, right? And,
Yeah.
and so we saw Ryan made some comments on, I think it was Facebook or Twitter. I forget what it was, but
I know.
But all I could think, I was like, dude, he got his ass reamed. Because I can imagine it's probably like 1 o'clock in the morning when
when she came through that door, I was like, oh, it's her. I was like,
she just looks at it and she goes, she does that, right? And so, she gets that whole Lizzie Borden look in her eyes, and I'm like, oh, Ryan's fucked. He's gonna be thrown off the friggin' boat with the tea, And
Ryan, tell her we said hello. Tell her the Canadian and the American said hello.
Yeah, tell her not to hate us. But it's okay. But I think the book club will be fun. I think it'll be a good time. I think people are really going to enjoy it. There'll be some definitely surprises and talk that we'll have about it, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. So I'm glad people like it. I'm glad Biddles, I'm glad you like it. I just thought it was a fascinating read. It's your point about how you can't put it down. It's true.
It is, because
it is so historically accurate, but it's so vivid. It's almost like in real time, so it's just a great read. It's kind of a heart tugger at different times, and it's just a good read. So I'm glad you like it.
To say there was one part in it, and I will talk about this on the forum in the spoiler section. There was one part in it that I really related to in the situation we're going through today, and it made me cry.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. No.
Just what the world situation is today. Yeah. Yep. And Ryan said she went full Tudor angry monarch. Poor Ryan.
Yeah, poor Ryan. It's okay.
He's a trooper. Him and Colleen, the other Irish guy.
He was. But it was funny on the thing the other night though. There was one point because Ryan was going and going and going. He had his conversation hat on, talking about Marie's Heights at the end, and all I could think about is he is so fucked.
He is. He was not wanting that meeting to end because he knew he was fucked.
All I could picture is his wife standing there dressed as the Grim Reaper,
and she's
waiting for him. Yep, right. It's okay, man. It's all good. It's all good. But I'm glad you stuck it. I hope it didn't scare you away.
It was so funny. So funny.
Just this, though. Just this.
Just when she walked through the door, I was like, ooh.
Like, someone's in trouble. I almost had to put my fucking Jesus card out for him,
We're just giving you shit, Ryan. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm glad it worked out. But I think we're almost done here, Mary. It's almost
we are.
12:30.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we should probably start wrapping up.
Be cognizant of the time here. We got to take more controls over those round tables too. I think the round table's still going on.
In Ryan's head, it might be.
Yeah, it definitely is. So just a couple of things. So next, we are going to be doing the Asia Booth, John Wilkes Booth story on the next podcast. That'll be dropping on Saturday. So we're going to record that on Tuesday. And then what do we have coming up after that? We have we're doing a thing on secession, right?
After that we have secession, and then I'm trying to think. I think we have like a Valentine's Day themed episode where I think we're going to be doing dating profiles of the generals.
We had one plan set for Valentine's Day, but it's not going to work, unfortunately, because our friend Jessica.
I got to get in contact with her. Jacob, you got to go do all the things. Believe me, that's how I feel when we jump off these two. These are like Friday nights and Saturday mornings are like, I love them because I get to come do this stuff. I'm editing the podcast drops. We listen to it in the morning.
You do it till 1 o'clock in the morning because you're in a bad mood, and the rest of it goes, and blah blah blah. Oh, last night was fucking hilarious. That was a thing last night. God, that's right. I said I did. I guess
that means you're over it.
I was totally fine with it all along.
Just Jesus Christ. Giving you shit. Ryan said, she who must be obeyed was like the personification of a telegram from Stanton and Halleck combined. Lucky not to be relieved of my command, frankly.
Oh.
But yeah, Valentine's Day will probably be an episode about dating profiles of the generals. And then
So
I
fun
think
with that.
I think we're
And obviously for John Bell Hood, he'll be swapping to the right. We'll have fun with that, I promise.
Bragg will be nothing, likes nothing, likes nothing, likes my dog Braxy.
Yeah, we'll have some fun with that. We'll definitely have some fun with that. So
Yeah.
well, but we have some fun stuff coming up. So we have that. I'm really looking forward to the booth thing. I'm not gonna lie to you. We've been talking
Mine
about this
too.
one for months. So I'm glad we finally get her on. So we're gonna do about that. A little weird to have a guest, but that's okay. We'll see how that goes.
We don't do we don't do guests often at all, just because we're more just doing our thing here. But on occasion we have them on.
No, it'll be good. It'll be good. So I think people will like that one. We'll do the live next week to talk about it, and then we'll go from there. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. So congratulations for the 3 people who won the book.
Yeah,
I don't know where the hell Leonard is. But
I
he
know
must be.
Leonard, Michelle, and Ben. Congratulations.
So I'm gonna mail those books out. If so Ben, do me a favor and just like we said before, either email us at info@civilwarbreakfastclub.com or message us on Facebook or Twitter just with your address, and so I can mail this out to you. I'll send it out on Monday, and then we'll contact Leonard or Michelle. Mary, right?
We will.
So I think we'll be in good shape. So, all right, I think we're good for now. I think we're done for the day. I think it's time to enjoy the rest of our Saturday. Everybody have a great weekend, and hopefully we're looking at a Packers, I don't know, Bills Super Bowl, I guess.
I hope so. Yeah, I'll have my Packers jersey on tomorrow. That's for fucking sure.
No, I'm rooting for the Packers. I'm rooting for the Packers. So
yeah.
Anyway, so we'll see with that. So Mary, I guess we are good for the day. So anyway, thanks for everybody jumping on with us. We had a real great time, everybody, as always with this stuff. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you didn't listen to the podcast, please do, because it was a lot of fun to record that.
Let us know what you think too. Give us your thoughts on Columbia and the burning of it and Herman's Columbia campaign. And just know that we will pick it back up probably in April. I think we will do part 2, which is around the time that Johnson signed the surrender at Bentonville.
And everybody have a great. Oh, hey Amelia, I didn't see you on there.
Hey Amelia.
And have a great Saturday. Ryan, I hope you're feeling better. Richie, if you're still on here, I hope you're feeling better as well. So
anyway, you both feel better.
Yeah, definitely. So Mary, is always a pleasure. The pleasure is always yours. And and we will talk. Okay, fine. I guess I deserve that one. Everybody have a great rest of the weekend. Thanks for jumping on, everybody. So we will talk to you soon. We look forward to seeing you on the other side. So Mary,
see you guys later.
Again, everybody, enjoy your weekend. Bye, everybody.
Cheers. Bye, guys.